Probably. It's going to be a lot of the same.
Yeah.
It is neat that it's kind
Do we even both failed?
Do what?
I mean, both planning commission.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we just hired our new associate. At some point in the next few years, they'll give me a she's trying to find a house and it's just like
I want to welcome you all to the regularly scheduled council meeting of the governing body of Spring Hill, Kansas on September 28, 2023. And if you guys would all stand with me, Miss North is going to do the invocation today.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity that we have to meet together and discuss concerns about the city. And we're thankful for the opportunity that we have to serve and pray that we might have the spirit of discernment to be able to do what is best for this community, and that those that have come to participate will feel welcome and feel free to speak what is on their mind. We are grateful for those that protect our city and watch over it, and we are also grateful for the freedoms of speech in this great land of America. We ask for thy guidance and direction throughout this evening in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you could please take the roll.
Mrs. Roth? Mr. Peel?
Here.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mrs. North,
Here.
Mr. Van Houten.
Here.
Mayor, we do have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. We did have a request by the staff to move item number 20 to after item 11. So other than that, are there any other requested changes? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to a presentation. It's promotional ceremony for the Spring Hill Police Department for Sergeant Gutierrez. And Chief Henson, you have the floor.
All right, thank you for giving me the time to recognize and celebrate an individual who volunteered and was chosen to formally lead others within the Spring Hill Police Department. Selecting leaders is a difficult task. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And this is especially true in selecting sergeants. It is important to find people of character who demonstrate consistency, competency, and the right attitude to lead others. Being promoted to a position where you lead others is a significant step in a career, and it shows a willingness to challenge oneself and become involved in the success of the department. It is a selfless act, as many rely on your availability, good judgment, fairness, and ability to work with others to promote the department's and the employees' success. Our promotional process consists of 3 phases. One is a written test that measures your knowledge of statutes, city ordinances, policy, and we have 2 additional panel interviews. The first panel tests your ability to prioritize, handle a personnel issue, and an incident command scenario. The second tests your ability to showcase your past examples of work, communicate your leadership philosophies, and connect them to our core values. During the promotional process, this individual demonstrated his understanding of the responsibility and represented our department's core values of respect. And I've said it before here many times before, but respect means responsibility, excellence, service, professionalism, example, compassion, and teamwork. And we're happy that we can share this accomplishment with his family, members of the governing body, and the citizens of Spring Hill. And so with that, I would ask Franco and his wife, Ariana, to come up.
Chief, do you want to stand there right now?
No, come on up. They can all come up. I've got a few things to say about you, though. So, why don't you stand right here? So Franco Gutierrez was born in Long Beach, California, but moved to Carthage, Missouri when he was young. He attended high school at Carthage High School, and is a graduate from Mid-American Nazarene University with a bachelor's degree in biology. And I met his professor here tonight, who said and he even told us this today in our training, that he wanted to be a doctor because he wanted to help people. And like many of us, sometimes, college gets in the way, or fun gets in the way of college, and we change our degree, and we're very lucky that he changed his course and became an officer. He began his law enforcement career in 2017 as a member of the Johnson County Park Police. He is fluent in Spanish and is frequently used for translation. He is also a trainer for fair and impartial policing and does a very good job at that, I might add, and trained in CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Team. He also has served as one of our community liaison officers. He is well-liked, and he has a calm and patient demeanor. He is not afraid to laugh at himself and is always willing to learn. And he is excellent at connecting with others, both within the department and in the community. Outside of law enforcement, his family is everything. And he loves spending time with his girls, and you have 2 of them right here. Sergeant Gutierrez is married to Ariana, and together they have 2 daughters, Camila, who is 3, and Elsie, who is now 10 months old. I know he has a lot of family members here tonight. Don't know if you want to do a quick little intro.
There's the families.
There you
Dr. Cole and his wife from MNU. Yeah.
All right. Much is expected of Franco, and I have no doubt you will rise to the challenge. We will see great things from you, and as we move forward with our department to serve our community to the best of our ability. So, Ariana, you're going to have to put put Camila down.
gonna try not to stop Debbie.
So, okay, so we'll have you go ahead and pin. Alrighty, pin on him.
You know what, this is a lot harder than it looks. That's what I told him.
No pressure.
I was like, you could die during this.
All right, congratulations. I'll jump in here real quick too.
Whole family?
Well, I'm not gonna get in with the family. Do a quick shot.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. There's a good one.
I don't know.
We'll take one with the,
Mm-hmm.
You said without her, right, G?
if you want to have your kids in there, I just said it's fine. You can get in if you like, if you want.
You wanna be in it, Camila? We don't.
No. Nope.
This way. 1, 2, 3.
Yep. One more, chief.
Take it one more.
Oh, one more. Thank you.
Yes, congratulations and thank you for your service. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you, thank you.
Next, we'll go ahead and move on to citizen participation. At this time, it's the time for community members that can come up and speak their piece and either speak about something on the agenda or something else that they would like to talk about. We do have a lot of people here tonight, obviously, so thank you all for coming. We welcome you here and we'd love to hear from you. Just please, we do have a 5-minute per person time limit, so because we have so many people, if we could try to keep it to that time limit so we can give everybody the opportunity to speak. We definitely want to hear from all of you that want to speak. And just want to also remind you guys that this is the time for citizen participation, so later on in the meeting, there will not be a time for the public to speak. So if you would like to speak, now would be your time. And we do have a list to start with, but if there's anybody that didn't get a chance to sign up on the list, you can go ahead and speak after everyone that's on the list has. We just ask that you step up to the microphone and state your name and your address. The first person on the list is Austin Cack, looks like.
I represent the developer for one of the consent, or for one of the agenda items. Is now the appropriate time to present on that?
Probably later on.
Okay. Then I'll-
Yeah, probably later on when we present the rezoning.
Okay.
So the next person on the list is Mr. Chuck Morse.
As usual. Brought some slides. There we go. All right. I will try to make this within 5 minutes for sure, or 5.5 for sure. So I'm here to talk about the rezoning for industrial lots along Woodland Road. But first, I wanted to do a plug for the Fall Festival. I have nothing to do with the organizing and planning of the Fall Festival, but I'm one of many people who will happily show up and take advantage of everyone else's hard work. So for anyone that is watching on the live stream, all 5 of you, or any of you that are in the room that maybe just got back from the International Space Station and didn't know this was going on this weekend, there's a lot of activities planned. You can go to the website to learn more. But the other reason I'm going to tie this in a little bit to this rezoning proposal, but this event is an example of one of the many things that make our community great and brings us together. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a terrific tradition. And the other thing that surprised me at the top of this flyer was 69th annual. I mean, that is insane. And I imagine to myself, the citizens who first did this nearly 70 years ago, could they have ever imagined that this would still be going on? And it's just a reminder to me that, everyone in this room, citizens, council members, we're all here for the same reason, which is we care about this community. And we know that the the things we do and don't do will have a very long-term impact, and when we are all long gone, hopefully there'll be a pot that we'll leave it in a better place than we found it. And I think the Fall Festival is one of those types of things. But I'll run through this quickly. As you guys know, the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago unanimously denied this rezoning. I think you guys will do the same, but I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points. First is it's incompatible with the comp plan. It's incompatible with surrounding properties. And finally, industry has a lot of negative consequences that are long-term that we probably don't want. You can't see my slides, can you? Or are they on your screens? Oh, okay. Incompatibility with the comp plan, you can see the location. It's very clearly, slated for residential, whether that's single family or rural residential. The new comp plan, this was a drawing by one of the planning commission members. And I think it's the direction that the new comp plan will go, and it maintains the same. Industry is to the west of Woodland, single family is to the right. And I really think Woodland and the railroad tracks, it should be like a Trump border wall where it's a hard stop. There's industry on the west, and then there's residential on the right to the east. And were we to approve this industrial lot rezoning there in the middle, I mean, it's very incompatible with the surrounding properties. You've got 9 existing rural residential lots to the north. You've got the 80 acres that border my property to the east. That'll most likely be single family or maybe estate properties in the future. If I win the Powerball, it's going to become an 80-acre dog park, I hope. And then further south there on Ridgeview, you've got a lot of established homes on 10-acre lots. And then west, you've got Foxwood Ranch. And as you move west further at 191st and Woodland, it's an ideal location for additional single-family development. But because it's closer to the railroad tracks, it could be multifamily. And then as that's kind of the vision as you transition from industry and railroad tracks over to maybe multifamily to single-family to rural. But if we were to make a decision like to rezone this as industrial, no developer in their right mind is going to try to sell a neighborhood next to industrial lots. So it pretty much means that it's going to go industrial all up and down. And I would submit that there's a very virtuous cycle with residential development because new houses, new residents attracts new businesses and retail, and that new retail attracts more residents, and both of those generate and grow the tax base for the city. So whether it's property tax, sales tax, use tax, it's a very virtuous cycle, and I think industry has the potential to do the opposite, where I think it can be destructive because new industrial development can create, blight basically on the horizon, which is, the opposite. It's not attractive for residential development, and you've got a lot of negatives with truck traffic, noise, pollution, and all of those make it a less attractive place to live. This is a visual for you of the Monarch Cement Plant, and, few people would want to have their most expensive asset, their home, be right next to this if they had a choice. This plant operates 24/7 in the same zoning, M1 industrial zoning, and it creates a lot of noise, a lot of dust, and just crazy light pollution at night. I talked to the Planning Commission about this previously. They said something's probably going to be done about it, which would be great, but to me it's ironic that we talk about dark skies and street lights that preserve the night sky, and then we allow this, an 8-story, I describe it as the SpaceX launch site right there on 183rd. And the other consequence of this, as you guys well know, but 183rd Street has been closed for weeks for repairs due to that heavy truck traffic. So in conclusion, we want more of this, nice neighborhoods, nice retail, and less of this, less SpaceX, less launch towers, less 24/7 operation. That sounds a lot like my snooze button. But in the last slide is, less industry too, you have less potential for conflicts and incidents with the families who are on our roads every day. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mark Crawford.
Mr. Chairman, hello, my name is Mark Crawford. I live at 18925 Skyview Lane. It's in Foxwood Ranch community. First off, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and generally agree with exactly what the gentleman before me said. I want to present my point of view from the Spring Hill Unified Zoning Ordinance perspective. The Unified Zoning Ordinance states in paragraph D, the purpose, this code is adopted to preserve and improve the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Spring Hill and to implement the following regulatory aspects of the comprehensive plan's goals. And I picked 3 of the goals that I wanted to focus on here. Create housing which maintains the character and scale of small town or a village. Create a park or open space system which serves the needs of all citizens, preserves the natural environment, and enhances the visual character of the city and surrounding areas. And the third goal is maintain a small town atmosphere. Now imagine this, a multi-acre plot of land with homes, a horse farm, and even a Spring Hill Museum on the north side of this plot. And a new and growing community with over 100 families and a school on the south side of this plot. Now drop in an industrial concrete plant in the middle of this, and then go back and visit the purpose and goals of the zoning ordinance. Does the industrial concrete plant in the middle of homes, a horse farm, a museum, and a growing community and schools instill images of preserving and improving the public health, or maintaining the character of a small town village, or enhance the visual character of the city and surrounding areas? Rather than putting an industrial concrete plant there, I would love to see Spring Hill use that plot of land between 183rd and 191st Streets and create a public green space area. The existing communities and new developments are growing in northern Spring Hill. It would be beneficial to have a nice public green space in northern Spring Hill too. Now replace the visual image of the industrial concrete plant with a park or green space, and I'm confident that you will agree that the green space aligns with the Spring Hill zoning ordinance's purposes and goals. At most, and at my shock, you will agree and proceed to put a park there. But at bare minimum, we ask you to consider and agree with the families that live in this area that putting an industrial concrete plant there is a bad idea. The Spring Hill Planning Commission voted unanimously against it. We ask you to do the same. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Tom Davenport.
So after those, Tom Davenport, 19465 West 183rd Street. After those last two, my comments are going to be pale in comparison. So my concerns are much in line with theirs. Talking about the increased traffic. I'm the horse farm, by the way. So increased traffic, which raises a lot of safety concerns. We've got an. I wish I would have recorded all the trucks, large trucks that we now have going up and down 183rd and also up and down Woodland Road. I leased some ground just off of Woodland for one of my neighbors, as well as pasture ground. I was up there mowing just the other day, and it was unbelievable the amount of dust that I was mowing in from all the traffic. Some of the traffic, pretty considerate, just like any other public road. A lot of the other traffic, not so considerate. With another commercial site, we're going to get just that much more of it, right? Also the noise. The noise goes on at the site across from the railroad tracks. I am, four places down from Woodland Road, and the noise is still going on, jackhammers and things like that, 11 o'clock at night. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable, right? As Charles spoke about the lights from the behemoth of the concrete plant, there's no getting away from it, right? The people that had presented this to the Planning Commission had talked about there being a natural buffer zone. The buffer zone that they were referring to was our land, the owner's land, right? And so, in other words, if in order to stay away from the proposed things that they're wanting to do, just never go to the back of your property. Don't bother putting anything on the back of your property, you know. They had also said that at one point, once they get it approved for commercial zoning, they really don't have any say over what goes in there. And case in point, again, going back to the concrete plant, we were told originally that that was going to be put into storage units, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't. And then I guess in closing, I would ask you, would that be something you would want on the edge of your backyard? So, all right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Armstrong.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Armstrong. I live at 22350 South Madison Street, and I'm here to speak on agenda item number 14, the rezoning of the Sweetwater Flats area, which is right at 223rd and Victory, between Victory and Jefferson. I want to start off by hitting on the 6 criteria that are outlined by Golden versus the City of Overland Park. Not going to go in the order they use, but one of the criteria is time that it's remained vacant. This land has remained vacant for a long time, but the commercial real estate market has not exactly been great over the past 4 or 5 years. Number 2, the zoning and uses of property in the nearby area. Well, this in the city's comprehensive plan, this was set to be a commercial zone for specific reasons. We want commercial companies or commercial entities coming to that corridor of 223rd Street. Number 3, the sustainability of the property for use. This is a very small parcel of land right there between 223rd and backs up to the Feather Ridge housing development subdivision. There's really not room there for multiple 3-story buildings, clubhouses, and parking lots to support all those people that will live there. Number 4, extent that it will be detrimental to the nearby property. This is going to cause a huge increase in traffic to 223rd, which is already overwhelmed as is. There's no traffic control along that road, major east-west corridor for the county. And there's also, there's no shoulders, there's no places for pedestrians, there's no places for bicycles, and it's just not safe for the increased traffic. The 5th criteria is the character of the neighborhood. I saved the biggest ones for the last. A multi-story, multi-family housing development does not fit in this land where it's prescribed to be put. It just does not fit the surrounding area. There'll be arguments about Blackhawk. Blackhawk is set back and in a very separated with a very delineated buffer zone of streets and green zones that this development will not have. And then number 6, the relative gain to the public health, safety, and well-being. I have yet to hear anyone talk about anything other than what are the detrimental effects to this. They're minor. There will be minor detrimental effects. That shouldn't even be a question. How is this going to help that surrounding area? It's not. It's going to be very detrimental to that area, but nobody can argue that there will not be a gain. There will not be a gain to the public health, safety, and welfare. Just in closing, the two other points that I want to put up. There should be, it's highly recommended that there be a neighborhood meeting, a meeting with the neighbors that this is going to impact. It was not until maybe 48 hours ago, for me it was 24 hours ago, that there was any effort whatsoever for the developer to make contact with any of the neighborhood to try to resolve some of these issues. I don't think that is shows a lot of good feelings for anybody. So did want to bring that up. And then just in closing, the Planning Commission has recommended not to approve this rezoning. We definitely think that you should listen to that. So There's a lot of people here. We're here, there's a lot of people here for two reasons for the most part. And we want you to vote against the rezoning of this Sweetwater Flats. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Barrett.
Evening. Tim Barrett, 22376 South Madison. I'm here for the same reason as Jeff. Little different points, not as well put together as what he is, but 223rd is already a disaster. There's accidents there all year long, and in the winter, we're constantly towing vehicles out of the ditch, right there where that building is gonna be. I couldn't tell you how many times people have been up in the brush. You're gonna have somebody that hits that building with this new plan. There's no way to prevent it. There's no shoulders, there's no curbs, no sidewalks, nothing to protect them. You put kids in those buildings, they're gonna be running across the road right there. If any of you travel 223rd, if you're going east in the morning, you can't see. If you're going west of an evening, you can't see. People will die there, plain and simple, if this goes through. It's not set up. Not saying it can't be in the future, but we're not there. 223rd's a mess. It needs some serious attention, and it hasn't been given it. We already have the new subdivision going in on the east side of Victory down there. That's gonna add traffic, and if you put another one in there, it won't be, I mean, it's gonna get nasty real quick. I personally, I know numerous people, we're gonna be leaving if it goes through. We're not gonna stick around for it, because we don't wanna see it, we don't wanna be part of it. And I've been here since 2007, I have no desire to leave. I plan on retiring and being there and being done. This one thing will change that for me, though. I mean, you guys have a lot to think about on this one. I mean, this is a big deal for everybody in this neighborhood. So please consider following the zoning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Fishburne.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you all. I'm Julie Fishburne. I live at 20880 West 224th, and I live in the same cul-de-sac as Jeff and Tim, who spoke prior. My neighbors, and I would just like to start out a little differently and just acknowledge that you guys have a very difficult job serving on city council and balancing the needs of the city and the citizens that live here and the residents with this project who will be directly affected. We moved here about 5 years ago from a much busier, close city called Olathe. And we were really drawn to the area, and specifically Feather Ridge neighborhood, because it was just quiet and quaint. Everybody's very neighborly, which you don't always get in the suburbs. It's very peaceful. From my back porch, I can look out and see cows across the street, which is really cool. And if the project goes through, that's unfortunately going to change. So a couple of things here with the C2 current zoning. There's can be some great things, namely some commercial office space, civic centers, some sort of retail food establishment would be awesome, which we are really kind of yearning for here in Spring Hill, some more food choices. So I won't really reiterate the items that have been touched on before, other than just a couple things with the 3-story building and the 48 units that are planned to go in there. You know, of course, the traffic is a huge concern, and I'm not against something like this. I really don't feel like this is the right place or time. I feel like that infrastructure with redoing 223rd Street really needs to be addressed before something like this should move forward. Having said all of that, I feel like, you know, if you lived in the cul-de-sac and something that was 1 story goes in there with daytime traffic, like a retail center or something, that would be one thing. But when you are talking about 48 units and a 3-story building towering over your backyards, where people, even if there are no decks or patios on that side, there are certainly going to be windows where people can just by nature see down into your home, not your house, but your home. The buffer zone is also what I would call inadequate with a berm and trees and a 6-foot fence. When you compare that to a three-story building, that is not really going to shield that with noise, sound, and sight. The safety of the residents and the children that would plan to live there should be something that should be weigh into your decision. Like I said, I'm not against it, something like this, just don't support it in the proposed location. So thank you for your time, and I encourage you to deny the project and the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Rick Ridenover. Maybe. If I butchered your last name, I apologize.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Hi, my name is Rick Ridenauer. I live at 19685 West 183rd Street. And that puts me just east of the concrete plant, which I'm not going to go over all the stuff everyone else has said, just kind of keep this short and simple. The one thing I would like to add, though, is the amount of truck traffic. But even before 183rd Street was closed for repair of the truck traffic, the traffic going up and down Woodland from 175th clear south, on south past 191st, I would assume, has been quite high. So that road's getting a lot of traffic already. Then you combine that with a traffic coming east and west, which are going to be the trucks that appear to be bringing materials for concrete. And then the cement mixers that are taking the mixed concrete out to be poured. There's just a lot of traffic. I don't think we need any more traffic by trying to have this property rezoned. That was number 13, I should say. I'm sorry. Should have said that earlier. Number 13. But I think, and as we learned at the September 6th, I believe, meeting, was that the original plan was always to have that area just east of the tracks to be rural residential. Never was intended to be an industrial area. I would just like to see the board stick to the plan, and this was their investment. They don't live on that land. Our homes are our investments. We do live on that land. So their investment doesn't necessarily equate to me to have a zoning change so they can make more money when they sell the land. They've had it for 20 years. I would imagine they could probably sell it and get out from under it if they had to or wanted to. But don't change the zoning, just try to help their investment. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Steve Laughlin.
My name's Steve Laughlin. I live at 19125 West 183rd Street. I border the north side of this farm we're talking about rezoning. We've had some wonderful, truthful comments made up here tonight, and I agree with everything that everyone has said. Being as I live on 183rd Street, I am a witness to the horrendous traffic with these concrete trucks, dump trucks, construction trucks. But I think there's one thing that has not been mentioned here, and that is the school traffic. 1/2 mile to 1.5 mile, we have a new elementary school, a middle school, and a grade school. A lot of those kids are coming from the southern end of Olathe. Ridgeview Road is their main artery. At the intersection of 175th and Ridgeview, it's already a high accident intersection. 183rd Street, I have seen numerous. I'm not sure about 191st, but I presume it's probably happening there. That's the traffic that's going south. You have all the houses on the west side of 169 Highway. Those kids are coming over to go to this high school, and they are coming across to 183rd and 191st. They're mixing with all these construction vehicles. If we add more to this 80 acres back here, they are going to choke those streets off with construction traffic and all these kids going to school. I don't know whether there has been a study on the traffic on these roads, but I believe it needs to be seriously looked at and considered. They went to the expense to build a railroad crossing at 199th. And I'm sure that was for the safety of getting kids to that high school. But you go back up to our way with those houses that are west of 169 Highway, I believe some of them are trying to dodge the traffic light at 175th Street. But some of them are just coming on south to 183rd and 191st. And in a lot of cases, these kids, they drive. I mean, it's not grandma coming down the road, and then you mix all these trucks in, and these trucks are moving too, because they're from Ridgeview to Woodland, there's nothing to stop them there. And then one other point I want to make. If this is rezoned, they're trapped on Woodland Road. They're going to come out to Woodland, go north or south. 90% of that traffic is going north because it's going to the southern end of Olathe. So it's going to move it into 175th, 183rd, and Ridgeview with all of those students coming right into it. I just ask you to vote against this. I think it's terrible for our neighborhood. I think it's going to ruin our resale values. And if this is passed, what lies ahead for the future development of our neighborhood? Who's going to want to put a new housing development right on the south side of this? I think it's going to sour any developer's taste for it. But anyway, I thank you for listening to me, and I ask you to vote against this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the list I have, but if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to step up and say anything, now would be your time.
I have one thing. Oh, sorry. I'll make this real quick.
And if you could just state your name and address like the other ones did.
Okay. My name's Mary Beth Laughlin, 19125 West 183rd Street, Olathe, right next door to the Inzer Estate. That was my husband you just heard. And what I wanted to say was, last time at the committee meeting, when we were here, we were talking, I don't know who it was, if it was the developer or the owner, I don't know. But they said, well, we could put berms there so that it wouldn't bother these people. Well, I look out my kitchen window and there's trees, full-grown trees that don't stop me from seeing past there. I mean, because it goes up a hill. And so I just wanted to say, when they say, we'll do berms so they don't have to deal with this, those little 6-foot berms aren't going to do a thing. Thank you. Y'all have a nice day.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Faye Toon. I live on 18495 South Woodland. So I would be very, very close to this. And talking about putting some barrier between us and that, the way he told somebody last time was their backyard was going to be the barrier. Well, the way my property lies from west to east, there's only 100 feet between my house and the property line. So is that going to be my barrier, that little bit of space? And the traffic is bad, and they've said that. Those teenagers run that four-way stop at 191st and Woodland all the time. Trucks run that stop sign. There's been accidents on 183rd. There's been accidents down there at 191st because the roads are not built right for it, and too many people are just running it. They don't pay any attention to the stop signs. They think because Woodland is a dirt road on the one side that it's unimportant. Why should I have to stop for who's on the dirt road? Doesn't matter, we got a stop sign. You know, and just, they need to fix the roads before they do anything. They need to watch the traffic. Used to, the police department came up my road all the time. But since we were having all those big trucks coming, I don't ever see a police department. You know, a police car. And some of those people are going 70, 75 miles an hour. I can tell it. They're just watching them how fast they go by my house. And the other thing is the dust. You know, nobody's made any effort to even put dust control on that road, which would help all of us. it's just not feasible. And yeah, he made an investment there, but he should have thought it through farther, because he knew when he bought that place that it was residential. So when you buy something knowing that it's residential, I don't think you really should ask to make it something else. But anyway, that's my piece, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up.
So
Could you come up here? So 'cause we got people watching online and they can't hear you if you're not up at the microphone. Appreciate it.
So I'm the applicant for the rezoning, and so I didn't know if it was appropriate now or.
Probably at the rezoning time, if you want to present it then.
I just thought that it might give some answers to some of the people's things that go 20 years back, wherein a lot of the people weren't here, and I was creating these sewer districts. So I would like to.
Sir, yeah.
When we get to the rezoning portion, if you
Yeah,
wanna
when we get to
present
that portion of the agenda, the applicants do have a chance to speak at that time, so.
Yeah, we'll give you time then.
Get a chance just then. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Robert McCray, I live at 22366 South Madison, here to speak about the Sweetwater Flats rezoning. I'm just here to encourage you guys to go along with the planning commission. I think my neighbors have brought up all the points. They've done a very good job with it. I just wanted to say that I hope that you guys agree with the planning commission and don't rezone the property. There has been a lot of talk about 223rd Street. I moved here in 1979. This section of 223rd Street, where these apartments are going to be built, hasn't changed since 1979. It's still the same road. There haven't been any improvements. There's been asphalt put on it, but it's the exact same road as it was back then. I think the new plan is to not have an entryway onto Jefferson, and everything's going to go onto Victory Road. I don't know if you've ever turned off at 223rd on Victory Road. If there's a car there, it's not a real easy process. So I don't know that makes it any better. It's just putting people in a worse place to get into traffic. And I think it will cause problems. Not against affordable housing. I've been a firefighter in my life. I couldn't live in the district I worked in because I couldn't afford housing. I understand affordable housing. I agree with it. We're just trying to put this and shoehorn this in a place where it doesn't need to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
could I have like 30 seconds to talk one more time?
Sure. I don't think you used all your 5 minutes anyway, so you're good to go.
So, Tom Davenport, 19465 West 183rd Street. The gentleman that just came up and wanted to talk about his zoning application, I believe his name is Bob. I think that's correct. He had made mention that about a 20-year thing, you know, how some of these people have not been there. I consider myself one of the young kids on the block. I've been there since 2003. I know that the Laughlins have been there for 35 years. Marcia Hale's been there for 30 years. Laura Lee Rapue's been there for 30 years. Steve Birdsall up in the corner has been there longer than I've been there. Shelley Homan, my next door neighbor, has been there longer than I have. There's only one Rick has been there for 30 years. There's only one other person in that stretch of houses that has been there less time than me. We've been there over 20 years, all of us with the one exception. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Adam Reitz. I live at 19655 183rd Street. I'm among the people talking about item number 13. And I just want to talk about, like, the owner of this property is doing what I would do. If you had a business and you were trying to build a big building to store your merchandise or something, you would try to take the land you had and use it. But you would need to consider, and we're up here talking about the incompatibility of this little parcel of land boxed in by residential as an industrial lot. So even if the owner has very good intent and would try to make like estate-sized lots for industrial buildings with big spacing and grass, that's just unrealistic to expect to have last, right? No reasonable person is going to say, I will mow 2 acres of lot so that I can have this building in a nice area in industrial. Industrial is a certain thing on purpose. It's supposed to be high density, and it's supposed to be where you can go to do things that are loud and gravelly and annoying. And our hope is that you won't put loud, gravelly, annoying things right next to our residential lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
REETZ, R-E-E-T-Z.
Anyone else? If not, we'll go ahead and close citizen participation at this time and move on to the consent agenda. This is items that the staff considers routine maintenance, but if there are any questions or comments from the governing body, now would be your time. If not, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to formal council action. And the first item on the agenda is appointment of a new city prosecutor. And this is, our former prosecutor is moving on. And so we went through the process of interviewing quite a few different candidates. And this person stood out by far among the rest. And so I'm very happy to nominate Catherine Marsh to be the new city prosecutor. And if you guys have any questions up here, if not, we'll move on. And if you would like to step up and say anything, feel free.
I didn't know if I could.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Come and introduce yourself.
We'll fire you with lots of questions.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Catherine Marsh. I am honored to have this opportunity to be here and would appreciate your support. And thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity as well.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out, she does have over 22 years of experience and just comes with very good recommendations and did very well with us firing lots of questions at her. So,
Welcome.
Thank you.
Does that take a? There's no vote or anything, right?
do we need a formal vote on that? Okay, I thought so. With that, I entertain, if there's no further questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
What was their name again?
Catherine Marsh.
Catherine Marsh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm terrible with names. I make a motion to approve the appointment of Catherine Marsh to the position of city prosecutor. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Welcome to the team. Next, we'll move on to consider the approval of agreement with the 2024 agreement with the Fire District Number 2. And Mr. Lowe, you have the floor.
Hey guys, I'll keep this one pretty quick. Yearly renewal of this agreement. The agreement is the same as last year, other than the price went up, big shock, and the year numbers changed because it's a new agreement. Other than that, same terms, still getting fire protection. Chief is here. If you guys have any detailed questions for him, he brought his slide deck if you guys want to watch a PowerPoint. Otherwise, we're all here for questions.
With that, any questions or comments for Mr. Lowe or the chief?
No, I think we went over this not too long ago, so it's
Yep.
Yeah, Chief did a great job explaining this a couple meetings ago, so
Yeah.
I get to ride in and do the easy part.
No.
If there are no questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
Where are we I make a motion to approve the 2024 agreement with Fire District Number 2.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next item on the agenda is consider approval for submitting a formal loan application for the 2024 Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And Mr. Massey, you have the floor.
This evening, we have Garrett Nordstrom with Governmental Assistance Services here to go over, we're trying to get a contract with him to help us through the application process with the state of Kansas. So I think Garrett's in the back of the room. We'll have him speak to it, and this is the first step in the process of submitting the application to the state of Kansas. And Garrett has extensive experience in this, and we're hoping to bring him on to help us through the process.
Greetings and thank you for having me. I'm Garrett Nordstrom with Governmental Assistance Services from Lawrence. We are a grant administration proposal writing firm that's been in business in Lawrence since 1987. We specifically do KDHE revolving loan applications, and it was our intent to come on board with you. What we would serve the city as is a sort of a turnkey consultant to submit the application, to conduct an environmental assessment that has to go with the application to the Kansas Department of Health Environment revolving loan. So we send out letters to the applicable agencies, environmental agencies that have jurisdiction over the project and KDHE requires. We file the application on behalf of the city. We represent the city during the required public hearings and make sure that the application goes through if there are any questions. Are there any questions from the council itself about the Kansas Department of Health and Environment revolving loans or any other thing that we may do?
The application process doesn't actually lock us into anything, right? It's basically getting us through the process, and then as we go through the public hearings and everything, we still have the ability to back out if we.
Yes, that is correct. And so we would go through the public hearing, a public meeting, talk about the alternatives, talk about the project scope and the estimated project cost, which we don't yet have. We would apply on behalf of the city, submit the application that the mayor would sign. And at that point, they would KDHE hires an independent consultant that conducts what we call a financial feasibility study. Talk about rates, talk about what it looks like in the future, what they suggest, and then they approve the loan. At that point, they would deliver the executed loan agreement to the city for consideration, and the city council would pass a resolution to accept that loan. And at that point is when the city would be, I guess,
Kind of
committed to it.
Does this program work with expansion and totally new facilities, or is it only for one or the other?
It's for both.
Oh, so it is for both, okay.
So it's for both.
So we can go either way depending on what the studies say.
Yes, it is, but it requires us to identify a project in a project budget. Now, once we have that, if we want to expand the budget or amend the project, that time we could petition the state, Kansas Department of Health and Environment to sort of amend the project.
Okay.
Typically, we stick though within the initial scope of work that we approve.
What kind of timeline we talking about, or should we expect as far as how the process plays out when the applications go in? Like, will we see something come back to us within 2 or 3 months, or is this more 6 to 8? Or
I think it's 6 months. I think we're looking at the next 90 days for design, 60 to 90 days for the design, and we'll have to have, not design, I apologize, for a preliminary engineering estimate cost. As soon as we have that, then we can publish our notice and we can begin the process. But we have about a 45 to 60 day window for the environmental assessment that'll have to be conducted. So we're talking 3 to 6 months, probably 5 around there, depending on how quick the engineers go.
And Lane, do you want to speak at all to the purpose of what the goals with this revolving fund this loan would be?
Absolutely. The intent of this is, as we're moving forward and there's growth, we're having a need for potential sewer projects, infrastructure in the ground specifically. I think we'll come back later, possibly in 2024, talking about sewer treatment facility. But this specific is more directed towards wastewater, main lines, sewer lines within the ground. So there's a couple different projects that are coming up, and with the state of Kansas offering a lower interest rate than typically the financing that we can get, this gives the city a good alternative and option to look at.
Does your firm look for grants and things like that also that kind of go along with the funding, or is it strictly just for the lending or the loan program?
So for this, for the city of Spring Hill, that's the loan grant ratio for water or sewer infrastructure would be something that would be considered at the state level, depending on the, I guess you would say, the median household income. There are some other indications, and they would come directly for us. We have been very successful in the community development block grant program with the State Department of Commerce, but that typically only serves low to moderate income communities and communities that don't participate in the Johnson County CDBG program. And so it's right now, Spring Hill is not eligible for community development block grants for sewer infrastructure. There's little out there. However, there is the new, I guess, the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law that was just passed, and there's going to be an unprecedented amount of money coming through that. And so the long answer is yes, and we will be working with Lane to make sure that the city of Spring Hill grabs everything possible and takes part in that bipartisan infrastructure law.
I think that's all my questions.
Any other questions or comments?
Below market interest rate stands out. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Anywhere we can save money to
We're very interested in that.
Yeah. And it's a significantly lower interest rate than we can get, so it's gonna save us a lot of money.
No, I mean,
No questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve for submitting a formal loan application for the 2024 Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Second.
Got a,
You may want to say and execute the contract with GAS.
Gonna amend my motion to include and execute the contract with
GA.
GAS. Oh, there it is.
We've got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next, we'll move on to consider approval of appropriation order number 2023-09-28, and Mrs. Dunn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a routine item that we have on every agenda. It is on the formal action tonight as opposed to consent because it does include an invoice for J&T Auto, and that amount is $32.39. And otherwise, these are routine expenses of the city, and I ask that you approve this appropriation order.
Are there any questions or comments on that one? It's most everything I saw in there was pretty straightforward, but if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. If not, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve appropriations order number 2023-09-28.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 2023 dash, what's that number on there, Glenda?
Just
Okay, we'll wait on the number until we decide what we do with it.
Yes.
But it's to consider approval of rezoning application Z-0000106-2023 RR to M1 with Spring Hill Properties LLC. And Mr. Long or Mr. Lowe, you have, or Mrs. Long or Mr. Lowe, you have the floor.
Good evening. Tonight I'm here to present your consideration and approval of ordinance for rezoning application Z-00106-2023. The applicant, who is here tonight, submitted a rezoning request for 81 acres of property at 183rd and Woodland Road. The property is currently zoned rural residential with requested zoning to M1, which is your general industrial district. A map showing the proposed zoning districts are attached to your staff report. On September 11, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this rezoning request. The staff presented the staff report, which you also should have, and clarified any questions from Planning Commission. A copy of the minutes are included for your review. Following the public hearing, the Planning Commission voted 6-0-0 to recommend denial of the rezoning request. There was a 14-day protest period and no valid protest petition was received by staff. The Spring Hill Planning Commission recommend denial of ordinance for rezoning application Z-00106-2023 for the described property from RR to M1. There are alternatives where you can approve or override the Planning Commission recommendation by 2/3 vote, remand it back to Planning Commission, deny or continue. Legal has reviewed the ordinance under consideration, and there is a suggested motion. And the applicant, as I said, is here along with his engineer. They would also like to speak.
Okay, yeah, if he wants to go ahead and come up and speak now, that'd be fine.
So my name's Bob Garber, and I used to own this property. I'm now a representative of the owners. And Doug is with Phelps Engineering, and they've been working on this. And it almost seems impossible that we could be standing here requesting an approval for something that seems to have so much opposition. And so you would have to ask yourself, how did we get here with, the denial of the Planning Commission and all the homeowner comments? And I think that's because we've been misdirected to be here prematurely with the circumstances. Before we ever invested any time in this, it was never our goal to be here without support. And we have written documentation where it was recommended that we would be approved and have the support of the commission for this type of zoning. So there was a simple question, and there was a yes, we would support this, the city would support this type of zoning on this property. And I think it's because of the success that occurred on the other side of the railroad tracks. So the fact that we're here is only because we asked a simple question and we were given the answer to proceed. So now we've invested a lot of time and money to do something that seems like it's not desirable or whatever. I will say that what Doug is going to present is nothing like what's on the other side of the tracks. And it leads me to believe that there's a different zoning type that may better fit this. But I would also like to touch on the fact that our group has been responsible 20 years ago for creating these sewers. We teed up the sewer district, and some of the homeowners that were there when it was being created will remember that there was a petition issued and by the city, and the city said, we're creating this district for the sewers, and I think it encompassed maybe 600 acres, and there was an option. There were two options, and the first option was you can either opt into the district if your land touches this sewer boundary and finance these special assessments over the course of 20 years through these bonds. Or you can opt out of the district, but if you ever want to connect to these sewers, you will have to pay a lump sum to join. So those were our two options. That was what was in the petition. I think since then, that has not been stuck to, because I know of other developers that have been connecting to these sewers and have not wrote a lump sum check to join. our group has been paying for these sewers for about 20 years without fail. And so I just like to point that out. And then the second thing I would like to point out is that our group is responsible for donating all the land for the middle school and the grade school in Wolf Creek in the development, which we own. So we like to believe that we've been investing in Spring Hill for 20 years. And in addition to that, our group owned the Spring Hill Self-Storage, which is now Attic Storage, which is on your agenda to be approved for more development. So I just like to think that I have been investing in Spring Hill, and I am considerate of the surrounding homeowners. And they will probably remember those sewer terms when that petition was issued. So the question is, if not this, then what? Well, the what is, okay, it could go into single family, and we could have 250 residences living there. You know, we actually developed the sewers on the Foxwood?
Foxwood Ranch.
Yes, we sold that land to Summit Homes, but we created those sewers. So all of this development is from what our efforts were 20 years ago, and we've been paying for those this whole time. And it has not been financially advantageous. We haven't made a lot of money for the investments. Maybe we will someday. And we're not a big, rich developer. I was just a young guy starting his business and believed in Spring Hill. So the impact, if we put more density of residential like Foxwood or whatever on there, is going to have way more impact than if we did 17, I'll say, what I would call light commercial. We brought examples of what it looks like. So I just like to maybe point some things out that maybe people aren't thinking, and also just state that it was never our goal to come here with an M1 zoning, but it was recommended to us that it would be supported. That's the only way we ended up here. We never said, will you let us do this? It was, you know, what can we do over here for these type of businesses we're going to show you. So we have no plans for any tall buildings, launch sites, work after 5. I happen to have a small business that I would like to put there if that was approved, for, you know, just a commercial business that doesn't have industrial type things going on. And there can be covenants and restrictions in there to prevent some of the things they're concerned about. But I do think that residential development would be more intrusive with less restrictions than what we're talking about. So those are just a few things I like to point out that maybe people weren't thinking of. And, you know, I'm sorry that people think that we really wanted to do something, you know, opposite of what our intentions are. We're not intending to build what's going on west of the railroad tracks. So that's all. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. Again, Doug Upman with Phelps Engineering. So I got a presentation. And really what we're going to try and focus on this presentation is, you know, at Planning Commission, the focus is really just on the zoning. And we really didn't focus a whole lot on the plan because really that was supposed to be reserved for the next step in the process, would be the preliminary plat. But being where we are, you know, and the hesitations everybody has, we feel like it's important to show everybody, you know, what's the plan, what's the layout, what we intend to do here. So everybody, you know, can try and maybe ease their concerns, some of what we're trying to do here, and show that this can be a buffer between it and the future residential, or the existing residential large lots to the north and any future residential in the area. So, so here's a copy of the plan. And I'll go into some more detail onto the specifics on the next slide, but, you know, you got Woodland Road on the west side, or on the left side being west, north is up. And on the west side of Woodland Road, you have the railroad tracks. There'd be just, you know, a street coming in east-west, to kind of a main artery through there that would serve the industrial lots, with some other cul-de-sac streets to serve this. Go to the next slide just to try and kind of highlight some of these. So with these are average of 2 to 4 acre lots. So, you know, with this type of development, we're not anticipating large industrial developments like such as a concrete plant or something like that. We're anticipating some smaller businesses. So we got 17 lots, light industrial to to help buffer some of the existing residents to the north, we can put in a 10-foot berm, and we've got that shown on the western half of the north property line with some trees and shrubs. With the 10-foot berm plus trees and shrubs, we could create a 25, 30-foot, probably even higher than that, depending on what type of species you choose, buffer along there. And then kind of on the eastern half of the north property line, you have it's just a natural low area. That's where detention would go. You see the darker green up along the north property line. That's the existing tree line that would remain in place. We wouldn't do any grading or take those trees out. So we could do, some buffering here and leave some existing vegetation to buffer the residents from the north. Typical lots consist of single or two-story buildings with a storefront, a shop area, and some screened outdoor storage. So I got some other slides down the way where we'll kind of go through some examples of what another development is around the area that what we're trying to build something similar to. So this type of buffer can be this type of industrial is a buffer to the railroad tracks on the west side of the site. And again, in the slides coming up, I'd like to show everybody how in other places around the county that this has been done, where we've done this type of industrial development up against residential and its work. So, and kind of as to Bob alluded as my last point here, really I think there's going to have to be some kind of buffer between single family and the railroad tracks. So whether that's some light industrial like this, or it's multifamily, if it's all multifamily or multifamily mixed with single family residential, the impacts to the surrounding street network can be higher on a volume basis with the amount of cars that, if you had some multifamily with single family mixed in here, you could have several hundred dwelling units in this. So it could have a higher impact to the surrounding area. So here's an aerial of the site, just to kind of reiterate a little bit of what we got here. Site in the middle, kind of color coded these zonings just to show how this is as we go from this slide to the next. They're all consistent. So on the west side, you got the railroad tracks. On the west side of the railroad tracks is all industrial. And then on the east side, we're proposing to go industrial on this 80 acres. And then you got just rural zoning that's been held in place north and south of the existing 80 acres here, as well as to the east, and even and then you got some R1 to the southeast. So this is the other project, similar type where, we would try to do the same type of light industrial. This is called Metcalf 211. It's at about 210th and Metcalf.
Stillwell.
It's in Stillwell. The east-west street, if you can see my cursor, here is 210th Street. Again, you got railroad tracks, both sides of the railroad tracks. Again, you got industrial zoning, and then beyond the industrial, again, you have rural zoning to south and east, and there's even one residential zoning on one of those 10-acre lots to the east. So this is what some pictures are of the buildings in Metcalf 211. This is what Bob's group is trying to do. Put these 1 to 2 story buildings in here. Some buildings with a storefront, shop area, outdoor storage. Couple other examples of some buildings in the development. So nothing extremely tall, nice industrial, light industrial that, like Bob's business has, might store some pipe outside, has a shop with some offices. So that's the kind of development Bob's trying to build here. And then just as another example, kind of how where zoning like this is similar, as you just look up 169 up to the southern end of Olathe. Again, I've tried to highlight the railroad tracks in the middle here. On both sides of the railroad tracks, you have industrial zoning all in the purple. And then directly to the east, you have, single family residential for a good portion of it. You got some multifamily mixed in there, but a good portion of that is single family residential. So again, just kind of in summary, we got a light industrial plan here. We're trying to find a zoning that could make this work on this property. We feel like the industrial can buffer from the railroad tracks, similar to the other locations that we've shown. And we're willing to work whatever we need to do to get the berms, tree lines, to buffer from the residences, to get the zoning on this property. So with that, do you have anything else, Dan?
No.
So I guess with that, we just stand to answer any questions you have.
I think there's some good points that have been made. We appreciate all that you've done to help with the sewer system in Spring Hill. And Wolf Creek Estates was a wonderful place to live that you helped develop. But it seems to me that the railroad track should be a hard buffer area where the industry stops, and maybe put something that is more like duplexes that are right across the street from the cement factory, because they wouldn't be that large or that tall, because that's not prime spot now that any single residential families will want to build right next to the railroad tracks. But that could be a buffer of some multifamily, some duplexes there that were less dense, and then put the rest single residential with even maybe some estate lots. I just think that that would be more suited for the surrounding area of these homeowners with large tracts of land that have invested a lot of years of their life in that. And so I just think it'd be a better plan to put something, some type of like duplexes and a little bit of the acreage right across from the railroad tracks, and then keep the rest residential on the east side of Woodland Road. And the developers should have been paying you as they tied into that sewer system, because all the homeowners around there have been paying you, or your group. So I don't know what happened there, why the other developers didn't pay for the sewer system to hook in, but that isn't right.
Yeah, I think that some of the landowners around this property can attest to what I'm saying, that this petition went out. And recently, another property developer reached out to us and said that they needed an easement from us to connect to the sewers, and they just wanted me to grant them an easement. And I said, well, did you write your check to connect to the sewers? Like, it was agreed upon, and no. So we had our people call the city, and there's been no payment to connect to the sewers. So basically, in our mind, we've been paying for all these sewers so that others can hook onto them 20 years later, free of charge, all while we continue to pay the specials. So I guess the big question is, help us come up with some good use for this property that can continue to benefit the city and help us move through it. So
I wish there was a different zoning besides M1 that we could use there for this type of properties. I work a lot in the financing industrial buildings like this, and they really are pretty nice to live by. The main issue I would have with changing it to M1 is that would be setting a precedent to move further down Woodland. And I really wouldn't want to do that, only because then we could say, well, you changed it for them. Now instead of housing, we want to do another one and another one, another one. So that's my main concern with the rezoning. I do think it's a good place for multifamily, whether it be apartment buildings, duplexes, whatever it is. I think that's the place we start to put some of these things that are like that. That's a good area just because of the railroad tracks. But that would be my main issue with going M1, is just the, creating that precedent that we have to, we've done it for you. And I don't want to, I don't know if these spots are terrible for it, but I don't want to set it up to where they just continue to put them in further and further down, because there is quite a bit of land open there. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my main issue with it. I'd rather keep it on that west side of the railroad tracks myself. So those are kind of my main concerns with it. I do like the layout that you have. I think that's probably the best that you could do with that area. But again, it's just a matter of the expectation for future developers that want to come in. So that's where it puts us kind of in a tough spot, at least up here. And then, with planning commission saying no already, I don't really want to go back on kind of their decision either. I feel like we should probably support them in something like that. So, I'd be happy to work with you and Pat and Amy and try to figure out what we can do there, but I just don't know if this is it right now.
Yeah, my concern is similar in that, look, it's your guys' right to develop it. I want to help you. We all want to help you, I think, develop it appropriately. M1 is so huge, right? Like, I mean, we could go through all the different things you could put at M1. And I appreciate what you're saying about what you want to do. I think if you did that, it'd be fantastic. I think there's a need. Like, I think you guys are not far off here. I think M1 just, in 6 months, if you sell it and somebody goes and puts, I don't know, just pipeline stuff. I don't know. You drive around, you'll see it in the industrial areas. Some of our industrial areas are I don't know, they just got junk sitting around. They got storage stuff. So I'm not suggesting you do that. I think you're close here. I think it's close to the industrial park. It kind of makes sense there. One thing nobody else has said is the road is gravel, right? So that entire Woodland Road is gravel on the west side. So, so we're going to have to deal with that. Not that that's your problem. But, we are going to have to make accommodations there for the road, I think, at some point, if you guys go through. So that's not on you. Those are just my concerns. I don't think you're too far off. I think what you're doing, if you did it exactly as I think I see that all the time elsewhere, just some of your examples. I don't think you're far off.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
One thought I had was, if there was a lighter commercial zoning or a conditional use. I know when we had the self-storage, we were operating under a conditional use permit. So that it was reviewed every year or 5 years, I don't know, about the screening and stuff. But is there a possibility where the buffer could be this more like these lots for the commercial type thing along Woodland, and then maybe it's, something else farther in?
I think that's a potential. Your lots are kind of weird because they're long or wide, not long. Whereas, if you did some kind of light industrial, you'd want it to be pressed as close to Woodland and the railroad track as possible. That doesn't give you a lot of options because of the way this property is. I think the properties to the east and to the south are most likely, if or when they get rezoned, to be some kind of residential also. And at that point, you'd have 3 sides of this surrounded by residential. So that doesn't really make it fit either. I kind of like the idea of the keeping everything on the west of the railroad tracks as far as industrial. If we did put residential there, you guys are right. It's gonna put more hardship on a bad road already. So I don't know that we're ready for it right away, by any means, but I do think some kind of residential would be probably a better choice in there. So.
And I'll echo some of the things that the others said up here. And then also I want to thank everybody out in the public that came to speak on this one and the other one coming up. We definitely take all your opinions and comments to heart. I do think that it's better suited to be on the other side of the tracks over there. I think that's already been zoned that way, and that's kind of the pattern we've done over the last quite a few years. I do like what you presented. I think it's a great plan, and I've been in I think I've been in that very area that you showed, the other one that you developed up in Stillwell. So they are nice, and what you presented is great. But like somebody else said, what if for some reason you end up having to sell it in a year or two, and somebody puts something totally different on there that's not in keeping with that plan? So that would be my fear, is that I really think that place is more destined to be a residential area, whether it's multifamily, whether it's duplexes, or whether it's even single family homes. I just think it's not fair to the neighbors around there to completely change the zoning for one small area that'll affect so many people around it.
Yeah, I think if you didn't butt up to the large lot properties, I would probably be more open to it, to where we could put single family homes around it later and say, you know what you're getting into. These folks have been there a long time, and it wasn't really on the outlook, at least from what I know, to, hey, put something like this in. Again, I would probably, if I lived there, I'd probably prefer this over real dense housing, which I think it's probably what's gonna go here, cause it's so close to rail track, but I understand where they're coming from, and I know the potential of what could happen if, say you put your building in and nothing else happens, and then we have another concrete plant wants to come in. We're opening ourselves up to having to accept things that go into M1 over there, that we're kind of putting ourselves in the hard spot. So that's where the biggest issues are probably coming in at this point. It's, at least for me, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I think if you're like, hey, I want to do something here, let's work together. I'd be very open to meet with you and like I said, the community development department, so that we can figure it out. Cause I'd love to help you get something over there.
And we want you to be able to develop the land. We don't want you to, lose all your money, lose your investment, all that. So that's definitely not our intent. I just think, everybody expects industrial to go on the west side of the tracks. And I think most of the homeowners around there didn't expect, industrial to go on the other side. So.
Do you see any scenario where the corner of 191st and Woodland, like we have the corner of 191st and Ridgeview, which is CP2?
Yes.
So it's gonna be commercial. So.
Which corner? That one by the school?
Yeah.
Okay. That was RP4 over there.
There's 10 acres of commercial there on the.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, south side.
You're talking about the southwest side?
Southwest
Yeah.
Southwest corner.
I envision the corner of 191st and Woodland be the northeast corner, which is the property that butts this property we're talking about, being probably a proposal for commercial as well, some point, because they're gonna want a buffer to the railroad. And so do you see a possibility, if we work together, that there could be a strip along Woodland where there would be this, I don't know what you call it, different zoning than M1, but commercial something?
Can we fit this type of stuff into C2 at all?
It doesn't allow for outdoor storage.
It does, okay, so that's the main issue, okay.
And if it, like, I don't think our C2 on the storage allowed that, and they gave us a conditional use permit.
That's what I was thinking, is maybe.
With the screening, and since then, that property is like, got even more outdoor storage than we had it, but, so I just was curious on feedback if that would be a consideration.
I think all those, at least in my opinion, are very good ideas, working through them ahead of time, so that you don't go through all the work prior to, and then coming in.
Yeah.
I don't know who you talked to that said, hey, you have the green light, but I think.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I don't apologize to you.
Yeah,
I don't know who it was, but I'm sorry that you were directed in that way, whoever it was.
I am too. I'm sorry it's gotten this
so-
far based on a suggestion. So.
And as the boards change, it's always gonna be a little bit different. That's the hard part to do, because it's like, they'll be different here next year. You're gonna have different people, so. I would say, it's a matter of, I'd love to work with you to try to figure it out, because that's been my main thing, is trying to figure out how to get whether industrial or any kind of commercial properties in. So just making sure it's the right way, and we do our best to work with the neighbors. I know no neighbor is going to love any commercial next to them, but that's just kind of, we're going to step on somebody's toes, but at the same time, how do we do it the right way so that it'll hurt for a little bit, and then they'll hopefully get over it. So
I know one time we talked about Woodland Road and just the whole improvement of that road, and I could be wrong, but it seems like I remember the county was involved with half the road and the city was involved with the other half, or something like that. It was kind of an awkward situation.
yeah, Ridgeview and everything's like that over there, so it's kind of a nightmare when it comes to that.
Yeah, so if you don't have the county on board, then, it's just, you don't get anywhere. So.
Yeah, it's kind of nothing happens. So, well, like I said, I think working together going forward is going to work. But on this one, I'm probably not going to be able to do it.
Okay.
For me.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on that one? If not, I entertain a motion.
All right. Let's see here. Brian, you can try. No. Where's it at on?
It's at the bottom of the review sheet.
So, on this sheet.
It'd be.
So your motion would be to uphold the planning commission's recommendation of denial.
So I
It
move
sounds
to
like a weird.
uphold
You're upholding the recommendation.
of the planning commission of denial. do I need to say the whole word?
Yep.
Of ordinance number 2023 dash.
Zoning application.
Oh, zoning application. Z dash 000106 dash 2023.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Young,
Yes to deny.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a yes vote is a vote.
You want a yes. You want to support your motion.
Yes to deny.
Mrs. North,
Yes.
Mr. Van Houten,
Yes.
Mr. Peel,
Yes.
Mayor Berkey.
Yes, also to deny.
The motion passes to uphold the planning commission recommendation to deny rezoning application Z 000106-2023 500.
Thank you guys very much. Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 2023 dash whatever it's going to be. And that's consider approval of rezoning application Z dash 000108 dash 2023, and that's C2 to RP4, and it's OPG Sweetwater Flats Partners LLC. And Mrs. Long, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and hand these out. These are from the applicant, so we will speak on that after I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Pat left me some doozies, didn't he? This one back in April, I don't know, you'll probably remember, Overland Property Group, came to you requesting, support of this project. So he is now coming back and bringing this to you for final approval. It's to consider ordinance, for rezoning application Z-00108 2023. The applicant, OPG Sweetwater Flats Partners LLC, Mr. Austin Cack, has submitted a request to rezone 4.56 acres of property on the southwest corner of 223rd and Victory Road. The property is currently zoned C2, General Business District, with requested zoning to RP4, which is the Planned Multifamily District. This piece of property has been zoned C2 for many years, with no interest in development. So on September 11th, the Planning Commission did conduct their public hearing. Once again, staff presented the staff report and answered and clarified any questions from the Planning Commission. A copy of those draft minutes are included for your review. Following the public hearing, the Planning Commission voted 510 to recommend denial of the rezoning request. There was a 14-day protest period, and a protest petition was received by city staff. Our city engineer, Dan Miller, has reviewed the petition and has determined it to be invalid. The Spring Hill Planning Commission recommends denial of the ordinance for rezoning application Z-000108 2023 for the described property from C2 to RP4. And legal has reviewed the ordinance under consideration. I will say that there is a error in there. Towards the bottom of the ordinance, it says Johnson County, and it should say Miami County. So if it passes, we will fix that. We have some alternatives to approve, override the planning commission, remand it back to planning commission, denial or continue. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. The applicant is here and would like to also speak with you.
Yep.
Did you say that there was an invalid petition?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and just.
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, just so you guys know, so Dan Miller, the city engineer, and I went through it. He went through it very fine tooth comb, checked title and owners and all that. So it was about 12.5% of the land within the notification area was a part of that protest petition, and the state statute sets that at 20% minimum. So it was about 7.5% short. Well, it was 7.5% short.
Thank you.
The same thing happened to the residents in Wolf Creek Estates with it not being very clear about how to go about a petition. So I don't know if there's a way to clarify that more because the residents don't understand that. And it always gets turned over as invalid. It personally happened to our subdivision. And so I just think there needs to be a lot more clarity in what the residents need to do on our website if they want to go through a petition, because it is their voice, it's their investment. And I did have ex parte conversation last week over the phone with Austin Clack. It was very general, everything that he talked about in the Planning Commission, he was up front. He wanted to be able to have concerns of the community addressed. And he even asked me to watch the 3-hour Planning Commission, which I did. And it was very good preparation for the meeting tonight on the rezoning that we just talked about over on 183rd. And also for this rezoning. And I think he's trying to do the best that he can, but after listening to a lot of the residents, the safety is a huge issue. And it does get backed up, and the site is not very easy to see when you're coming up to 23rd if somebody's stopped in front of you. And there has been accidents on Victory and Webster, and kids do like to go across the street to the Aquatic Center. So I just am really grateful that residents came because you need to have a voice. And it's a great plan as far as the looks of all this apartment, and it will be a nice one, but the location is being squeezed into an area that's just not the best thing for that area. But there are locations over there off of 223rd and Webster next to 169 that'd be a fantastic place to put it in there, next to the highway, not where people have the right to invest in home ownership, which is the greatest thing that we have the opportunity to do, is to invest in it. So I know you're on a time slot because I listened to that, because it is funded, where it's not just a pick up and move thing, but I don't think where whoever it was that you're working for the developer, I don't think that they put that into consideration, that it has been zoned C2 and there's residents that have invested. So.
And if Austin, if you want to come up and speak to what you had to say on it, and then.
Yeah, are there any more questions for staff before the applicant talks?
No. No.
I figured most of them would be for him anyways.
So I do have a presentation. I'm not gonna go through every single slide. I don't wanna kind of overwhelm the conversation. I do think it is important to kind of go back through the sequence of events that's kind of got us to this point, just so everyone's aware of kind of the situation that we're in today. We did bring it for consideration back in April. The process for us actually started back last year, I believe in October, from a planning perspective. We go through specific programs that are, really location specific. We try to identify areas that we see a need for affordable housing, housing in general, and essentially try to base our approach off of that. We have conversations with, landowners in the area, and try to figure out, what makes the most sense for certain communities in certain places. I will say, back then, the general approach to it was to try to get public comment early in the development process. We figured that public meetings were the best avenue to do that. So presenting it in front of the Planning Commission, we did have a conceptual site plan that was presented. I think there might have been a minor change between the original Planning Commission meeting and the City Council meeting that it was presented at. I'm not 100% sure. But generally speaking, it was roughly the same site plan. And we didn't get a whole lot of real negative feedback at that point. There were some concerns raised about density in the area, just the overall feel of the development. We tried to make as many of those changes as we could, and adjusted the site plans to try and fix some of those issues, and then brought it forward to the Planning Commission with the notification period and everything like that. I think it's no surprise that we definitely got more comment at that meeting than we anticipated. Our goal is to be a good neighbor in this whole process. We want to listen to, the concerns of all of the neighbors around us. We're long-term ownership developers, so we are going to own these buildings for an extended period of time. There was a gentleman that spoke earlier about, he moved into the neighborhood 35 years ago, and he knows the neighbors next to him, and they've been there for 25 years. We want that to be us 30 years from now. I'm hoping at some point, 15 years down the road, someone else is referencing this, and it was, there was some opposition to it up front, but we were able to work through some of the challenges together and really address the concerns of the community. So that being said, at the Planning Commission, and I don't know if we have if this is the right way to state this, there was a concern about the existing use allowing for multifamily use that was raised at the Planning Commission meeting. It's my personal opinion that affected the path of the conversation. And so I don't know if we can clarify any of those comments, but I think that is something that we would like to highlight is I think that sticking to the staff report and the points that were kind of walked through in reference to the comp plan, I think that was the intent of the meeting, and it felt like it did kind of turn once the idea of the existing zoning allowing for the proposed use was made. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it really there was any. I don't really think there was any intent behind it, but it did happen, and so I think that is one of the reasons why we're here today presenting the way that we are. So I have a bunch of stuff in here about us. We're probably one of the most successful affordable housing developers in the state of Kansas. I believe we have over 40 developments. Again, I'm not going to run through all of these, but we do a lot of affordable housing developments across the country. A lot of them similar to the one that we're proposing now. This is one in Colorado. It's 48 units, 50 units. This one's 72 units, 37 units. This is a larger one in Denver. Again, a metro area that's a lot different than this one, but from a design perspective, it's pretty similar. 104, 72, so on and so forth. So what about this development specifically? I will say, from the Planning Commission to now, we are attempting to be as receptive to public comments as possible. I think there are valid concerns raised by a lot of the neighbors. And I think, in our opinion, most of them are addressable. And so that's primarily what I'd want to discuss with you guys tonight is, we're listening to the neighbors as much as we can and trying to get information out there as quickly as possible. There is a bit of a time crunch that happens when the Planning Commission meeting is, 2 weeks prior, and then we go to the governing body after that. And so I recognize that it's a very short period of time to try and, make modifications to site plans and really try to fix all of the issues that come up. And then I think from like a legal perspective, figuring out kind of how we dealt with the issue of the existing zoning at the Planning Commission meeting, working through that issue, I think was a challenge for us as well. So I recognize that a lot of information came out late. One thing that, again, Wendy, I do appreciate you making the comment about us having the conversation. I am trying to be as candid and as transparent as possible. The same information that I discussed with Wendy has been delivered as far-reaching as I can get it to. It's been to the Chamber of Commerce. It's been left at the city offices. I did have a couple conversations with some neighbors, and again, I recognize that those happened very late. But the same information was distributed to them. It was posted to the local Facebook group. So that information is out there. And I think if we can walk through some of the specific changes, hopefully we can kind of come to an agreement that the majority of the issues are being addressed by the new site plan. So this is essentially a site plan that shows the correction to a lot of the concerns that we feel the neighbors were really highlighting in their comments at the Planning Commission meeting. So you'll see a lot more connectivity for sidewalks. This is a little bit more landscaped, just really trying to address some of these concerns. So I think I'll go to this one. So I think one of the primary concerns is, the access to 223rd Street and Victory Road from residents of the community. This is a family style development, so we do anticipate there being children there. I can definitely empathize with the concern that children might have the inkling to, chase a ball out into the street on 223rd or, be playing tag and running around where someone could fall down and potentially be put into a situation where they're on Victory Road or 223rd Street or Jefferson Street. So in order to mitigate some of that, we're intending and proposing to commit to installing a decorative fence around the perimeter of the property that would kind of restrict, a child's ability to run past that and really access some of those roads. As for the southern portion of the property, and this I think will be kind of a bigger point of contention, and was raised multiple times, the buffering requirement and the screening requirement on the south end of the property. We are going to commit to installing a 6-foot tall privacy fence with landscaping as required by the Spring Hill, zoning ordinances on both sides of that fence to help screen the neighbors to the north, or the neighbors to the south to the property to the north, and really try and create as much of a buffer and a screen as possible as we go through the development process. Another concern that was raised was traffic and safety along those roads themselves. So we did have an independent traffic study commissioned by Call Valley Engineering. Our engineer is here today as well, and those reports are generated based on a number of different factors. I think the biggest thing to consider here is the difference in zoning and the type of traffic that we're going to see. The traffic study showed that essentially, I think it's 1 car every 2 minutes at peak hour is really the traffic load that we're going to see with this development. But we recognize that traffic does impact the neighbors to the south in that subdivision. And so I think trying to mitigate as many of those concerns as possible is something that we want to address. So we've removed or proposed to remove the access off of Jefferson Street, removing any kind of like through thoroughfares through the neighborhood and through the subdivision in order to get to the development or turn out of the development. So we've proposed to remove that, leave the only access point along Victory Road, kind of get it out of the subdivision's kind of inner street network as much as possible. We've confirmed with our traffic engineer that the existing traffic conditions would allow and support for one single entrance along Victory Road. So that's again another mitigating factor that we're trying to kind of exemplify here. Again, the fourth concern is the distance to the neighbors. Again, I know that the concept of having a 3-story building close to your property is a disconcerting idea for a lot of the neighbors. The goal with this development is to push it as far north as possible to get it away from those homes and create as much distance as possible between where the neighbors are going to be on their back patios and how far away they are from those residential buildings. So in order to mitigate that, again, alongside the opaque fencing, the landscaping, all of that, we are also proposing to remove the balconies off of that elevation, or off of every elevation on the residential buildings. So, removing residents' ability to get out on a patio and be able to peer over into their, the neighbors in the backyard. And again, it's trying to do as many things as possible to mitigate these concerns that we're now hearing of. Another concern that was raised was connectivity to kind of local amenities. I think that the two main things that were raised in the Planning Commission meeting were connectivity to the water park and then connectivity to the retail center to the west and like Price Chopper and the park and everything over there. So we are proposing to extend sidewalks, an extensive sidewalk network kind of across the entire property. We are also under contract to the property to the west. We are going to propose to extend at our own cost a sidewalk that connects that sidewalk system kind of up Jefferson Street to 223rd, leaving enough room for the right-of-way for the street improvements whenever those happen, and then run the sidewalk west and south to connect to the existing trailhead that runs to Blackhawk Park and the Price Chopper and so on and so forth. And so I think from a design perspective, those are the majority of the things that that we're trying to address as we get these comments. And I think we have a stipulation list that, I don't know if the clerk is able to.
Was it your letter?
Yes.
Yes, that was on the dates.
Yes. So in an effort to be as good of neighbors as possible, we want to make this as legally sound as possible. So the reason that we went for RP4 versus a traditional rezone is that it gives the city more control over what the development looks like. It gives, it has higher architectural design requirements, and it really is a more robust form of multifamily, housing zoning. In addition to that, by making commitments, we want to make sure that this isn't just us as a developer coming up here and saying we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and then never turning around and actually having any recourse to do it. So we're proposing stipulations to approval that essentially legally bind us to addressing or doing the things that we're saying we're going to do in this meeting. So I think the combination of that along with design changes is an effort to try and get through as many of these comments and concerns as possible and address them. Outside of that, I think the sort of last concern that has been raised is, the specific location, the actual physical, geographic spot where the development is at. The program that we operate is very specific on different criteria for, where developments are located, the scoring that's associated with those, the success that they will see in those different neighborhoods. And, as Wendy mentioned, it really isn't a pick it up and move it somewhere else. One, we're not allowed to do that at this point. And two, the reason that I think this was approved is because it's in this location. Moving it to another location likely would have changed the dynamics of the development and made it to where it probably wasn't a reality. So I think it's probably apt for us to explain why we selected this in the first place and really go through some of the comp plan descriptions to kind of illustrate, conformance with it and try to help, communicate that this is an appropriate use for the area. So we have a couple different excerpts from the staff report here, and these are tied directly to the comp plan for the area. So I'd like to point your attention to this kind of middle portion that's highlighted towards the bottom. So it says section 5.6.1 of the comprehensive plan recommends the use of well-designed multifamily housing to transition between single-family housing and areas of higher intensity, including commercial uses, industrial uses, highways, and or roads. As a result, the property seems to be more suitable for uses restricted by the current zone than the uses that are allowed in the C2 district. So again, in early conversations with the approach to this development, we've known that it's needed to be rezoned for close to a year at this point. That's been part of the approach. In evaluating kind of what the comp plan says for the area, we're trying to fit, kind of meet some of those same requirements that other developments are as well, and try and create, a clean neighborhood that transitions from, low intensity uses to high intensity uses. This is in the same comp plan district as Black Hawk Apartments is. So multifamily use has been approved for this comp plan, area. And I would just like to point out that our density is much lower than Black Hawk Apartments. We're roughly 33% lower. This is 48 units on 4.5 acres, so almost 1/10 of an acre per unit. And it really is, we feel that it is in conformance with the comp plan, and that's really the argument that we're trying to make. So I think, to kind of maybe put a little bit of a bow on this, there is a housing crisis kind of across the country. Housing is getting more expensive to build. If you take a look at this depiction here, this is from the Miami County Economic Status Update. The vacancy in Spring Hill is literally zero. There's no vacancy. There are wait lists for apartments, and it's not getting any better. Interest rates are going up. Things are getting more expensive to build, and so it is a challenge for everyday people to find homes that they can, or find apartments that they can call homes and really just find places to live in neighborhoods that they want to live. If you look at sale prices in Miami County and in Spring Hill, again, same economic development report. The average home price in Spring Hill was average home sale price in Spring Hill was $450,000 last year, or this year. That's a $50,000 change from the year before. And again, we kind of expect that to continue as we move forward. So to kind of wrap all of this up, we're trying to be as receptive as possible to the concerns of the neighbors. We recognize and acknowledge that the concerns are valid. Again, if this was in my neighborhood, I would have the same sort of questions, the same sort of comments. We're trying to do the best that we can in order to address those. And I think that there's a couple of different options available to really help us kind of, address those in a way that makes a difference and makes us good neighbors. So I think what we would like to request today is actually for you guys to remand it back to the Planning Commission. We think that, you know, having some further clarification around the existing zoning, what's allowed there, and then, you know, kind of the conformance with the comp plan, we think it's probably better addressed back at the Planning Commission level, give them another opportunity to take a look at it, and with the understanding that C2 doesn't allow for a multifamily use, and kind of reconsider the application on those merits. And then again, that would also kind of allow us to include some of these stipulations that we're presenting in front of you today in order to try and address some of those comments. In addition to that, what it would allow us to do is have the opportunity to host a couple of neighborhood meetings to really get out and continue to communicate with the neighbors and continue to try and solicit advice, comments, suggestions, you know, concerns, anything that we can do to continue to get comments from the neighborhood and try and address these in a way that makes us good neighbors. So again, we would request that you remand this back to Planning Commission. We would commit to hosting 2 neighborhood meetings, one next Tuesday, one the following Tuesday. In communications with some of the neighbors, we were able to get the presentation that you've got in front of you, the binding that you've got in front of you today, posted to the Facebook page. We would like to get these notices posted as soon as possible. Tomorrow, we would commit to having them posted tomorrow, have them in a location in Spring Hill that's convenient for the neighbors, and allow them to come out and make comments, and really help us kind of adjust this to make it work. Because at the end of the day, we think this is a strong development. We think it's in the right spot. We're trying to do our best to address concerns as they come up, and we just think that it's an overall good for the community. We'd encourage, you know, consideration of everything that we've got in front of you. I feel like I'm talking a lot and really fast, so I apologize.
Yeah, so I'll jump in if you, are you?
Yeah.
As much as a pain it was for you guys to make the last motion, I'm gonna make your lives a little more harder. A little more difficult. That's it, better English. So you all, the options in front of you, you can agree with the Planning Commission. That just takes a majority vote that would deny this application completely. You can remand it by a majority vote. And when you remand, your motion to remand needs to include specific things for the Planning Commission to consider. For instance, it could be this letter with the conditions. It could be more than that. It could be less than that. You guys get to choose what it is you want the Planning Commission to focus on. The Planning Commission will reanalyze that. It will not need to go through a new public hearing. They will send it back to you to do this all again. You guys can approve this plan as is with no changes. That would take a 2/3 vote, which is 4 of you tonight. You can also approve with conditions. So you can approve, if there's 4 of you that just want to approve it with these conditions tonight, you could do that. If you want to add more conditions, you could do that. But those are your options. You got a lot of tools at your disposal. So as you enter in your questions and deliberation, I just wanted you all to be aware.
So
With that, I'll open up the floor to you guys. And then also Mrs. Roth was not able to be here today, but she did send me a letter that she would like me to read. Whatever, I'll give you guys a chance first, then I'll read her letter.
when I was listening to the Planning Commission meeting, refresh my memory. We have multifamily housing and some single going in on the northwest corner of Victory and 223rd Street. Is that correct?
Southeast
corner.
Southeast corner, okay. But that's Victory and 223rd, right? About 50 homes, or how much is multifamily?
It's, I think it was like 20 duplexes, right?
I'm not sure on the exact number, but I would like to clarify that it was rezoned, but the project has not moved forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it was like 50 or 60 doors.
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a large.
It was not a huge one.
Yeah.
It
between
hasn't
that
moved
two.
forward yet, right? But they can still do it, like a
Yeah.
lot of the developments are waiting because of the interest rates and things.
Yes.
And also, on some of the requirements of having one of these type of communities, which is a beautiful one if it's in the right location, was that it would be close to a bank and Price Chopper and other community things to make it accessible for them, which I don't understand why they didn't look at the land right next to 169 in Webster, which is a huge piece of land, more area even than this 4.6 acres, if I understand right, that it is. And the back neighbor that is on the south side, their property, when they moved there and looked at it being commercial zoned, put a gate in their back fenced property because they were thinking if it was to go get a cup of coffee or something, they'd be able to go through their gate. And there is no extra spare room. It butts up right next to their property line, right? And the trees are great to have trees, but they take a long time to grow. And 6 feet is not really that much of a barrier. We know along 223rd Street, it's deep ditches on both sides. So in order to put sidewalks in, because we have that problem throughout the city, it's very costly to put sidewalks in. And there's still gonna be the traffic on Victory if everything comes out there. The trash receptacle, I think that you talked about in the planning commission, you'd try to work moving the big trash receptacle for 48 units with probably 2 to 3, maybe 4 individuals in it, was butting up next to her 6-foot fence if that went in, and that would not be something anybody would want. But I do think it's still a safety issue. That's a truck route on 223rd that we're trying to stop, like Gardner did on the other side. But we have big agriculture trucks that come down there. There are semis that come down there, and you have the local, students that need to get across the street. So there's really not a way to get across that street unless there's transportation. So I don't know why that location was picked, because it really is not compatible with the area. It should have been commercial like it is all on that side with Price Chopper and the bank, and that nobody cares about it being commercial on that side because they're daylight hours when people attend to those places. But if you have this big unit, you're probably gonna have at least 1 to 2 drivers per unit. And if they've got a teenage son or something, they may have another extra vehicle, and it will not be quiet because people come and go at different hours to work night shifts. Even a lot of the locations in Spring Hill, they have night shifts. So it's a great idea, a beautiful building and a need for it, but there is other multifamily that is coming to Spring Hill that we have approved development, so things are on the agenda.
Any other questions, comments?
Go for it. Yeah, I have some comments. I've talked to Mr. Cack on the phone a couple of times, or at least once, and you've sent us some emails and other information, and I told you at that time like how much we need this kind of development in our community. I think we're finding out through the planning commission meeting and through discussion tonight that this isn't a really great spot for it. I know we were very much in favor of it when you came before us before. So that makes it really difficult, especially with how badly we need more types of developments like this. A lot of the concerns that we've talked about, I agree with some of them, and I don't agree with some of the other ones. I think some of the concerns that have been brought up are concerns that you'll see in single-family home residence areas as well. So I'm not going to go detail out every single one, but there are some legit concerns as well. I think the road infrastructure and the safety piece is concerning. So this is a pretty tough one also. I also really don't like that, and it applies to the other rezoning earlier tonight. I don't like it that if the planning commission doesn't approve something or denies something, that it actually comes to us. I understand the process of why that has to happen, because the planning commission is not a deciding authority. But I really feel like if the planning commission says no to something, then it should stop right there and needs to go back to the planning commission for approval before it would reach the final decision-making process. So I feel really bad for you, because knowing that and knowing that this is probably going to go back to the planning commission, it's probably been a little bit of a waste of your time to come here tonight and be prepared for tonight. but I do think that you're very committed to trying to see this project through, to try and address the issues that have been brought up. Matter of fact, I feel like you've been way more flexible than most developers ever would be or would consider. So I think that's pretty outstanding and shows how much you believe in this. And, you know, I think a lot of us up here believe in it too. Our biggest challenge is we have to find places where this can go, where this kind of stuff can go, where other multi-unit can go that may or may not be income driven. I know you've got parameters to meet for your specific project. I'm talking a little bit bigger than that. Projects like this or similar to it, we need more of them. And we need to figure out where we can put them and where they can go so that we can tell people like you, focus on these areas, focus on these areas, focus on these areas. Because I just think it's really awful that we waste a lot of time in stuff that doesn't have to be done here, you know, and there's a lot of planning and preparation that we could do that would make some of these processes go better. But we also have to involve the public as much as we possibly can, so it doesn't always work to do things that are not at the meeting. So I love this project, but I'm not going to say yes against the Planning Commission's wishes. So I'm happy to send it back to the Planning Commission to be reevaluated. I don't know what is going to be the outcome of that. I do feel like a lot of the citizens who spoke here and the people that live in that neighborhood, even if a lot of the things that you're talking about get done, I really just don't think there's going to be the support from the citizens around there for it. But we have to find projects like this in places where they will be okay to put it in, where the sentiment's not that. So that's a challenge for us.
We've talked a lot. I think you talked to everybody a lot. I actually live right behind there. I'm not in Feather Ridge, but I'm in Heritage Glen. I think they call it. It's one street. I'm not as affected as the folks that are right next to it. But after you came out the first time and after the Planning Commission, I've paid more attention as I go in and out. I've walked the property. It's a tough spot. With all that said, with everybody else's concerns, again, my biggest issue is the same issue I had on our last one, where I don't want to set a precedent that we're changing a zoning from one to the other, because now we're leaving it open for other C2 zonings that I think we really need to be changed over. And so, do I think it's more of a nuisance to have fast food there or a restaurant or whatever? The residents are probably going to hate that more than this apartment complex. But I think it's what we need. And I do like this. I think you did everything you could do to make the only thing different I would have liked, and we talked about this, is having the entrance off 223rd rather than either of the side roads. I know that's tough, but doing some sort of like a quick trip where it's one in, one out type off of 223rd would be the only way that would really alleviate a lot of the traffic concerns when it comes to those two side roads. But that's just where I would even be. I would be open to remanding it back, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be open to probably changing the zoning at all. So that's where, you know, I'd be okay with also upholding the Planning Commission. I know we've gone back and forth a lot, and you did a lot to try and make this work. And like I said, you're probably one of the best developers to ever come through and make changes to try to meet all the concerns. I think a lot of the concerns are valid, but like Brian said, there's some that, you know, you're going to find, if you don't want it to happen, you're going to find ways to say why it shouldn't happen. And I get that. Believe me, I understand that. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it right now.
If I can just jump in real quick, the concern of rezoning commercial out. If you want to remand for consideration, one thing you can permit in this would be an overlay district that allows residential uses, but your overlay district would essentially look like what an RP4 looks like, which is a very specific site-specific plan.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't set any, I guess, running precedents. Not that these have precedential effect, but it wouldn't send any message that you're willing to do commercial to residential outright.
Yeah.
And an overlay district would essentially say it has to be this exactly, which for all intents and purposes is what the RP4 is. It has to be this exactly, but it would leave it as commercial.
Yeah.
we would be open to doing that.
Yeah, and it's just-
And that's one of those, that's a condition
to
you
me,
could
it
put on
still
it to
moves it
consider.
in that direction. I know it's not maybe a legal precedent, but I would say a social precedent to say, hey, if we're gonna do this now, we're gonna be open to doing it later. I don't really wanna set that, and, you know, in my opinion, I think we wanna keep it. Hey, these are C2, it's been there a long time, I know unfortunately nobody's been interested in going there. We have another C2 that's on the corner of that other development that we approved that hasn't moved forward. I just think, yeah, if we can keep it all commercial there, it's probably gonna be better. The infrastructure's bad there. We spent the money we had towards it on other improvements in Miami County. So that pushes it back even further, being able to do something on 223rd. So, you know, these are all things that kind of run into it. It just kind of sucks. But like Brian said, and kind of like what we were talking about with the other guy, coming back and saying, hey, here's some other spots that maybe this could go or a similar you know, looking at that. Coming ahead of time, I mean, I'd love to work on something like that because I think we definitely need this, even more units of it. So that's where we can find a bigger property that maybe it fits or, but going back to even those pictures you were showing, can you go back to those ones you were showing?
Yeah,
for the developments? And I wanted to, or at least what I saw, but you were kind of going through quickly, but if you go through each one, go back to the kind of like the outside. If you look in the backgrounds, like that's all open land there. I don't know what's on this side of it, but I doubt that it's single family houses within like 100 feet.
They're developing single family right now.
They're what?
To the north, they're developing single family right now that abuts this property.
But after the fact, right? So it's,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the point of it, yeah, is that the,
It was all done at the same time.
oh, okay. Yeah, so the people going in there will be knowing that it's there, you know, type of thing. So that was kind of what I noticed in all the pictures of the outside ones is that, yeah, they have some open land or they may be developing it, but it wasn't pre-developed to where those people don't necessarily have that, you know, that knowledge of it beforehand.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my other, you know, just something I noticed on the picture you're going through. Because they all look great. I mean, again, this is what I want to, for me, I would say yes to it, but at the end of the day, I have to listen to everybody who said, I haven't heard anybody else say that they're okay with it.
Yeah.
So I want to be with the people who are, you know, it's where they live. You know, I'm not as affected by it, but the people who live there are, so.
It's not a facility issue at all.
Yeah.
I mean, these pictures are gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that's really not it. I think it does need a little bit more land, ideally. You know, or when it all goes in at the same time. So you know, and like, so I don't think that single family residential couldn't be by this or couldn't be near this. But I think putting it in after makes it much more problematic. And then, like, you've got a limited amount of space. Like, if it was a big open plot, you'd have a lot more options of things you could do, and you just don't have a lot with that spot.
I think from my opinion on this, I've heard from lots of manufacturing owners throughout the city, and that we need something like this. I mean, there's a long wait list for Black Hawk apartments, and there's virtually nothing else available like your stats showed in town. So I've had many business owners come and say they have young families, you know, that they can't afford to live in Spring Hill. They work here in Spring Hill, but they can't afford to live here because there's nothing available in their price range. And so I think this is something that's very much needed. I definitely hear all the concerns of the citizens, and thank you very much for coming and speaking those concerns. I do believe all their concerns are valid. I do think the developer tried to address as many of those as possible and did a good job addressing those, but there are still some of them that are not addressed. And so we definitely want to take those into consideration. I think this is a great development. I definitely understand the concerns with having, especially the people that have lived there for 15 or 20 years, and then all of a sudden this is coming up, so I definitely understand that. But once again, it's something that a good portion of the community does need. So it's kind of like Brian said, it's a hard decision for us up here because it's something that our community desperately needs, and we've had multiple people tell us that they need. But where do you fit it in? And you're a developer that's ready to move on this immediately, where we have some other, you know, like some of them mentioned, we have some other apartments that are approved, but those developers are just kind of sitting and waiting because of the interest rates and other things. So it could be years before those apartment complexes are built. So that's, once again, makes it a tough decision for us up here.
We would, and again, I know it's, I'm sensing the room, so I can definitely read the room. But that is another thing, like the financing is lined up for this. So if that is a driving concern, again, we would even be willing to put a stipulation in for, construction commencement by a certain date. Obviously, like we need the building permit process to go through, but this is one of those things where there's no more of a sure thing that these things get built when they get awarded. We physically cannot wait to construct them after we get them awarded because there's a place in service deadline. So, again, for what it's worth, we are a developer that has to move once we go forward with this. So, I would just offer that as a little bit of context as well.
I personally would be in favor of remanding this back to the planning commission and getting their opinions with all the changes that have been made and with the correct zoning notes that were incorrect on the first time, and just kind of seeing what they have to say. I don't like Brian said, I don't like to go against the planning commission when they were not quite unanimous. So I think there's one for it, but definitely like to send it back to them and let them look over it again with the changes, and then if they come back to us, then we'll go from there. I would like to read Mrs. Roth's email that she sent since she was unable to be with us tonight. Obviously, this is regarding this ordinance Z-000-108-2023 C2 to RP4 for Sweetwater Flats Partners LLC. This governing body seemed to be in consensus that our community is in need of lower price point housing options when this property was last discussed. We even made concessions to the developer to assist them in moving forward with the project. We've heard complaints of all kinds in an attempt to keep multifamily housing out, and we could carbon copy the discussion from other developments. We all agreed we need these options, but nobody seems to want it in their backyard. So the opposition often comes in other forms such as traffic concerns, child safety, watershed infrastructure, etc. The developer has addressed several concerns in the following way, and then she kind of lists some of the same things that you did. Density concerns by reducing the number of doors from 150 to less than 50. Sightline concerns by eliminating balconies and moving the structures as far away from the existing housing as possible. Traffic concerns by eliminating the Jefferson entrance. Safety concerns by adding sidewalks. This developer is listening to concerns and addressing them as best as possible. These are the traits we should be looking for in a community partner. The proposed zoning is a planned district which allows us to have say in what goes in the property. Left at C2, the neighbors could have loading docks on a 45-foot high building a few feet from their property line with no say from the city. This is not an appropriate layout. Of a well-planned city. This property has sat undeveloped for years, and we have the opportunity to not only improve the land but fill a need that we are desperately asking: affordable housing. How many people did we just listen to weeks ago share their concerns of being on a fixed income and were fearing that they could not afford their homes? This development also follows the appropriate grading pattern of desirable city layout: single family, multifamily, then commercial. This location allows for walkability to Blackhawk Shops, which is another item community members are asking for. On the steering committee for the comp plan, we discussed a need for a good mix of housing options to create a thriving community for all. This includes people who are not in the market for 400,000 plus homes. Young professionals, single parents, individuals on fixed income, and blue-collar workers are all people who deserve to live in this community just as much as you and I. I encourage the council to remit this back to Planning Commission for reconsideration. Thank you. And once again, that was from Mrs. Roth.
Nothing in that I can argue with.
Yep. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Chip, you got anything to add?
No. I think.
Can I make one parting comment?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm fully committed to this. We're just asking for a chance. If you remand it back to the Planning Commission, we're committing to trying to address as many of these concerns. Again, I've spent a lot of time on this. I'm attached to it. I want to see it happen. I believe in the cause. I want to do everything possible. The extra effort on me, please don't take that into account at all. I'm committed to making this happen. So give us a chance. We'll do our best, and it's no skin off my back to keep trying. So thank you.
I think remanding it gives it the best opportunity.
I think so too.
It's more time, and it's not guaranteed, and I can't even guarantee that I would change where I'm at right now, and letting you know that. But if you're committed to it, I think we should commit to it, give it its full due process. There was the question about the C2 that did kind of change the dynamic of the planning commission meeting, so I don't think that this would entirely be a waste, but I also don't know that you'll get a different outcome. But if that's what you want and you feel good with that, I feel good with that.
And if there's not any other way that you can bring up where there's multifamily coming in off Webster and 169 Highway, there's pre-construction that's going to be developing it, perfect location, close to the businesses, wider open spaces. You'd please the whole community and everybody would think it was wonderful seeing that. I know that's hard, or the other location, like I said, 169 Highway in Webster is extremely just as close. So I would hope maybe there's a way you could take that back and just see there's a little bit more room. And
The other rezoning tonight, like, they're looking for what to do there. You know, I know that doesn't help you with this project, but that there's potential for a lot of other things. I think, I don't know how all your stuff works, but I really want to see you back here with more projects.
Yeah. Again, more than happy to consider other locations. Just being 100% honest with you, this one is here. Like we can't move it. We're not allowed to. The applications are annual. They're very competitive. I think we were one of 10 out of like 50 applications. So I can commit to trying as hard as I can. But just being 100% transparent with you.
Yeah.
This is the location that they selected.
You
So
can't move off it at this point.
And I think, I mean, you can remand it and we might, but I would say that's just prolonging the inevitable. I mean, I don't really see, based off of that meeting and kind of at least where I'm at, I think just denying it and then try and maybe start looking for a different location would be the better way to go, just so that there's not more time spent on it. But that's just my opinion at this point. I just feel like we're prolonging it to kind of have the same outcome. And I know you spent a lot of time on it already, but
I'm not far away from that. I'm really not, you know, and matter of fact, I'm pretty close with you on that. And, you know, if our planning commission is willing to put the work in and have the discussion, I think our citizens are committed to having their input done, providing more input to the developer. He wants to do the work clearly, like, it may end up being the same outcome, but if they want to do the work, I think they can do the work.
And I think if we're remanding it back, I think we're doing our due diligence and allowing the developer to work with the neighbors and work with the community and allow everyone to still give a voice. And it, like you guys say, if it comes back and it's still the same thing, then then that's that, and we'll move on.
And I'll be happy to do the motion, and if you're don't want to support it, that totally makes sense.
yeah, no, and that's where I'm not stopping you. Is there options to drop this to 2-story at all? I know that would take you even lower on units, but
I don't believe we're allowed to amend it that way.
I'm only thinking of ways it's going to help you because I don't think.
No, so, I mean, you could present it as an amended preliminary development plan to the planning commission, and we need to check on code. I don't know that falls into any of the things that are prohibited as a substantial change for an amendment, so I think it could be explored.
My guess, we will, again, I think you could probably tell, I'll try and make that work.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just thinking at a 3-story,
Anyway.
I don't ever see it happening. So that's why I'm like, is there an option to go 2-story on that?
I think there technically is an option. Adding more floor area to that site, I think, is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sorry, Matt Gillum, I'm the managing partner of Overland Property Group, and Austin has always done a tremendous job. And sorry for my voice, I got a little bit of we were traveling with a 3-year-old, and you know how they do, they pick up everything and they bring it home. But I can promise you I'm not contagious, just a little drainage. Like Austin said, we do this all over. So I grew up in Salina, Austin grew up in Salina, my other business partners in Salina. We are used to doing this in more rural communities where we do have surrounding single family. So that is the normal. That up there on the screen is actually the exception to the rule. So most times when we develop this, it is around single family from that perspective. So as Austin said, we're asking to go back to planning simply so that some things can be corrected, but then we can explore other options with the neighbors. If they're saying 3 stories is an absolute no-go, we can go to 2. With this financing mechanism, we cannot change the number of units. So we can't go from 48 units to 32 or something like that. We are now locked into the number of units. So you would increase the gross floor, and building pads, but, it is possible from a funding perspective to go to 2 stories. But again, they have trade-offs.
Yeah.
You push 3 stories up again. So anyway,
You need a lot more space.
yeah, exactly. And so again, we're simply wanting to remand it so that we can make sure that it is fully vetted. And as you said, if it comes back and it's got a denial from them and you all decide that again, it doesn't need to move forward, we understand that, but we do feel that it's important that they rehear it because I personally was not at the meeting, but watching the tape that night and watching it over again, there was information that was presented that was incorrect. And there's no way that somebody could not base a decision off of that information.
Yeah.
So, again, we're just wanting to make sure that it has a full shake. And if at the end of the day it's denied, we've been here before. We're not going anywhere. My office is, 15 minutes from here. I live about 18 minutes from here. We're local to the community. We want to do the right thing. And so simply to carry through with that whole process, we just simply ask to go back to P&Z, please. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, there's plenty of rural space over on the Miami County side where we want to get it along the highway. And you could maybe even do the full project there if you could present it that way where you'd have it next to the highway and everybody would be happy and because we want your development just not there.
Definitely understand.
I would say if you're gonna remand it, I mean, you need to probably put some stuff of that like that back into it. So.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the 4 stipulations that you've laid out here definitely need to be addressed again with the planning commission. The changes that you've made from the site plan from then to now certainly need to be considered again in there as well. And the ability of being able to build it in C2, which is not correct, needs to be clearly stated and stated and stated.
And that's part of my reason for wanting to send it back to planning commission, because I feel like it wasn't presented accurately so they could make an informed decision. And so I think the developer deserves that to be presented accurately, so then they can make an informed decision versus making a decision off of what was presented.
Yeah. Would those types of statements, or was that adequate for as far as what needs to be in the motion to specifically say, you need to look at this, this, and this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to take a beat and write down the conditions so you can read them out, there's no rush to get to a motion.
30 or 40 seconds here.
But yeah, you guys can put on as many, and if anyone has any suggested conditions they didn't hear that they want to put on there, now's the time to tell Councilman Peel before he makes the motion. So you're not moving to amend and then we're making a complicated process twice as complicated.
I would say looking at dropping it to 2-story. Look at entrances. I know you've done this already. Was there no option to ever put one off of 223rd?
We can look at it again. Originally, the initial report from the traffic engineer, I believe, stated that it wasn't available. There might be some
Space in
modifications.
between Victory and Jefferson, I don't think.
Yeah, I think
One in, one out.
I think there would be concern of exiting directly onto 223rd Street.
Okay.
we do have our civil engineer here as well. He might be able to comment on
You
that.
could do one in on 223rd and come out on.
Yeah, so I was saying you
Maybe.
could just do the one in maybe on 223rd. So.
Just a single access, no secondary access.
Yeah, per APWA Martin Arling, Caw Valley Engineering. Per APWA requirements or guidelines, yes, we could get a right in, right out on, or actually be a full access. I think in the future, it's gonna be a right in, right out with the planned median on
Divided.
23rd Street.
Yeah. I was just thinking kind of like what Quick Trip has coming right off the stoplight. It's the same tight area that's kind of worked out fairly well there to have that right in, right out.
Yeah,
So
put it in there. We'll try.
I'm not giving support one way or the other. I just like to see these things in there and talk about at least if it's gonna go back there.
Yep.
I don't know what else you can do to improve it. You've improved it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they've addressed most of the things in there. I don't know what else that could be addressed out of the concerns that have come there, other than what he has addressed.
I'm getting there.
But still try for the other locations. You said you'd try.
That is literally the only thing we cannot do. It's a state thing. We're not allowed to move it, so.
It's a
I apologize.
whole new process next
Yeah,
year,
whole
right?
new-
It is a whole new, it's a whole new process, and again, just being 100% transparent with you, there are one of the things that goes into the selection criteria for this is typically the last time that a property, or last time that a development has been awarded, a development in an area. Again, the state likes to spread the resources across the entire state and not keeping them in one location, so, after a city has been awarded one, it's really hard to get another one awarded right away. We've done a lot of, I'd actually say the majority of our developments in Kansas are multiple phase. This one was kind of not planned to be a multiple phase development, but typically you'll see 2 to 3 at least years between when a single development receives an award and the next time that they're able to receive one, so.
Okay, I think I'm ready, close to ready. I've got 4 things, this is not my motion. This is clarifying before I do my motion. Stipulations 1, 2, 3, and 4 from your letter here dated on 9/27/23, adjusting to a 2-story buildings. All the changes that have been made in the site plan from the planning commission on 9/7/23 to city council meeting this evening, 9/28/23, and also clarifying that this project cannot be built in a C2 zoning, which it's currently zoned for.
What about the entrance?
Just to be clear on the clarification, it can't be built without an overlay district. So it can, but it needs an overlay district, which is a whole other thing,
So it can't be done, it can't be built as it sits right now.
As it sits now.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say as it sits now.
Okay.
Can I ask a question or make a comment? So the one thing that, I just want to make sure the way that our stipulations are written, I just want to make sure that there's no like contradiction where it's not possible to do some of them. So like, for example, the sidewalks extending across, if we put an access drive off of 223rd, obviously we can't put like a sidewalk
Yeah.
in the drive. So I don't know if there's a way to like clarify.
No, so yeah, what this is you're directing the planning commission to consider certain things.
Okay.
You're not saying that they have to approve it with
Right.
with all those. You're just telling the planning commission,
about
this is
it.
what we
Talk
want
about
you
each
guys
one
to
of
think
those.
about, talk about, and discuss,
Rediscuss this.
and send it back.
I think
to
you
us.
would still have sidewalks coming through theoretically, just like you do currently on the Victory.
Yes, yes.
So,
And the other was possible entrance off of 223rd.
So I should probably read the stipulations. I was trying to keep it short for my motion, but stipulation 1, decorative or architectural fencing must be provided around the perimeter of the development with pedestrian access gates at any intersections with sidewalks. No gates will be required at a single resident vehicle access location. Style of such fencing along the west, north, and east sides will be complementary to the architectural design of residential buildings and constructed of black metal spires or pickets with masonry corner posts. The style of such fence along the south side of the property will consist of 6-foot tall, 100% opaque wooden pickets. That was just stipulation 1. Number 2, the rest of them are shorter. Stipulation 2, no resident access driveway will be provided along Jefferson Street. Stipulation 3, all patios and balconies will be removed from residential buildings. Stipulation 4, sidewalk access will be extended across the subject property west along 223rd Street and south along the western property line to connect to existing trail system, providing pedestrian access to Price Chopper, Blackhawk Park, and Blackhawk Retail Center.
One thing wouldn't necessarily have to be a stipulation, but on your design here, on the picture that you sent, you've got that dumpster on the south side. I don't see any reason why we couldn't put the dumpster on the north side and have the trash further away from the neighbors as possible, because it's still the same turnaround. It's just,
Put it in there.
Yeah, I'll add that in real quick.
And you can just make it like location of dumpster.
Let's say different
Yeah.
part of the property.
Yeah. You don't have to tell the planning commission how you want them to come out on it or what. You can just say like entries and exits and fencing and that, so. but you can get as detailed as you want. It's your
How,
motion.
how many yeses do you need on our man? Just majority?
To remand, yeah, it'd be a majority, so it'd be 3 of you.
Okay, I think I'm ready. You good?
Yep.
Good for a motion?
Yep, entertain motion.
I move to remand, let's see, remand to planning commission rezoning application Z-000-108-2023. With the following considerations. Stipulations 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the letter dated 9/27/2023 from Overland Property Group, which I just read out loud. Adjusting from a 3-story to a 2-story. All of the changes in the site plan from the planning commission meeting on September 7th, 2023 to this evening's meeting of 9/28/23, and also clarifying that this project cannot be built as it sits in the current zoning. And then the final consideration of moving the trash receptacle to a different location on the property.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. North?
No.
Mr. Van Houten?
We're voting to remand, yes. Yes.
Mr. Peel?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Mayor Berkey?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0 to remand the rezoning application Z-000-108-2023 with the stated stipulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So would this be the October 5th planning commission?
Yes.
Yes, it'd be the next one.
Thursday?
Next, we'll move on to ordinance number,
Can we take a break?
well, we only got a few more, we can.
I was gonna say, I might run out then.
What's that?
I might run out then for a minute.
I entertain a motion to take a 5-minute break.
So moved.
Second.
All right,
Sorry.
here we go.
Too much drink.
Gotta call it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Sorry. No, you're good.
Come on, man.
I know there's only a couple of.
Usually once you get past 2 hours, you gotta have that.
I'll take a break.
Welcome back, everyone. Give everybody a chance to sit down real quick, those that want to, and then we'll move on. Next, we'll move on to an ordinance amending Chapter 15, Article 103 of the Spring Hill Municipal Code relating to the maximum speed limits on Ridgeview Road between 199th and 191st Street. And Mr. Lowe, you have the floor.
I see Heath bars, that's exciting. Yeah, so this is just part of kind of 3 successive ordinances. This amends the traffic code. Normally, this is something that would just get wrapped up in the new standard traffic ordinance you're gonna see next, spoiler alert. But Ridgeview Road is a road that state statute requires us to run traffic studies on before we change the speed limit. So we had a traffic study done by some traffic engineers. It supported setting the speed limit throughout the entirety of it at 35 miles an hour. So as you'll see in the change, the whole road is now 35 as opposed to just certain sets of it being 35. So.
Good idea.
Microphone.
Microphone.
Mic's not on.
I'm really glad to see that ordinance being proposed, because when we lived there, right where the kids had to cross was moved up to 45 miles an hour, but an accident took that sign out, and we said, don't ever put it back again. So the 145 mile an hour sign was helped out by an accident, and it's not there.
Yeah, nature finds a way.
Yeah, I think especially with all those schools there, it's definitely much needed. Safety is obviously a big priority, and with now even a 3rd school right down the street from there, it's definitely needed.
What's it on the other, what's with 199th to 207th? Is that 40 over there, or what is that?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know what 199
I would
is?
guess it's 45, but
45.
On Ridgeview, I mean, from 199th to 207th.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's,
so-
It's 45.
yeah.
It is.
So we're not touching that, we're just doing the school zones only.
It's just, yeah, and it will eliminate a school zone.
That's what I'm saying, is it gonna eliminate it, or are we gonna change it to 25?
No, it
No.
will eliminate it, because there's no kids crossing to the, elementary school. And that's where the school zones are, and the high school is already at 35, so there will not be another reduction.
Okay,
So it just maintains it consistently through the.
throughout the day, yeah.
Yep.
We'll leave signs up that say, school, but it won't be a school zone.
Yeah.
any other questions or comments?
Sorry, yeah, it is 199 to 191st. Sorry for saying the whole thing. It's in there. My bad.
No, that's why I thought we were.
Yeah.
I thought it was including that, so when I looked again, I'm like, oh, it doesn't have that.
If there are no further questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
Mayor, the ordinance number is 2023-18.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-18, standard traffic ordinance. I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. I make a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-18, standard traffic ordinance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, although, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Van Houten,
Yes.
Mr. Peel,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. North,
Yes.
Mayor Berkey.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-18 passes 500.
Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 2023-19, standard traffic ordinance. Mr. Lowe, you still have the floor.
So standard traffic ordinance, it's going to be the same as the city is currently doing. We are adopting the updated version of the uniform standard traffic ordinance. And the only real big change this from the city exempting itself out of that is what you guys just approved on Ridgeview. So
So, Madam Clerk, I'm pretty sure I said the wrong thing.
You said 18.
Ordinance. I said standard traffic ordinance on the last motion, which is what we're talking about now.
You got the
I can
ordinance number,
strike-
right?
I got the number right, but I
strike
did
that.
not
I
get
can-
the
I'll-
description right.
Is that okay? Just
Is it okay?
strike standard traffic ordinance.
'Cause it's still a traffic ordinance, it's just not a
Well,
standard, right? Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's part of the standard traffic ordinance that it's amending, so I think it's in there.
because the number was still right, so.
So the
He was talking about the
ordinance is
Ridgeview
fine.
Road one.
Yeah, but the Ridgeview Road ordinance
say
is
'cause
part
you
of the
got
standard
number
traffic
right.
ordinance.
Oh, so it's okay if you put.
Yeah, the number's correct, but the
Okay.
description was not.
It's okay. We're good.
If the lawyer says it's okay, then it's okay.
Yeah, so what you guys just approved is part of your standard traffic ordinance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, with that, I entertain a motion.
Yeah, you wanna get it right?
I messed up the last one.
Anybody else want to tackle it? These are,
I don't know where
the rest of them are pretty easy.
Move to approve the 2023 standard traffic ordinances outlined by ordinance 2023-19.
19.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Peel,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. North,
Yes.
Mr. Van Houten,
Yes.
getting late. Mayor Berkey.
Yes.
Did I call everybody?
Think so?
Okay. Sorry. Ordinance 2023-19, 2023 Standard Traffic Ordinance, as outlined by ordinance 2023-19, passes 500.
Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-20, Uniform Public Offense Code. And Mr. Lowe, you still have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna recuse myself for number 18 and 19. So don't forget about me.
What about 17?
yeah, do you want to stick around for
We're
the
on
public
17.
offense code?
Did I miss it again?
I was like, I'm not sure why you're leaving.
Yeah, my man, it looks suspicious to recuse from this one.
He's ready to get out of here.
Yeah,
It's almost like it's 10 o'clock at night.
yeah.
I know, yeah. Yeah, but that's well said.
But the public.
I'm sorry. I'm still gonna recuse myself from number 18 and 19, but I'll wait until this one's done.
Until
Wait
18,
until
19
number
are up.
18 and 19.
Okay, glad to know I haven't scared him off. It's simple, super simple one here again. Updating to the newest version of the Uniform Public Defense Code, keeps us in line with this year's version. No significant changes from last year though, as far as what the city is adding or exempting itself from.
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-20,
Yep.
Uniform Public Offense Code.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Peel,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. North,
Yes.
Mr. Van Houten,
Yes.
Mayor Berkey.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-20 for the 2023 Uniform Public Offense Code passes 500.
Now we'll move on to number 18. Consider approval of special event permit Spring Hill Fall Festival Cornhole Tournament. And Mrs. Garrity, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. The reason why Councilman Peel recused himself is because the Spring Hill Rec Commission is a sponsor of this event. And what it is, it's a special event for the Spring Hill Fall Festival. They're going to be holding a cornhole tournament on Friday. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, it's on Friday, September 29th, from 5 to 9 p.m. at the ball fields. The Ruatan Club will be having beer sales during the event. That license is issued under a separate license under the city clerk's office. And just to let you know, that has been approved by the police department, fire department, and community development department, so that will be issued for that. The departments from community development, police, streets, parks, and Johnson County Fire District has reviewed this application, and they have no issues to report. The city's risk manager reported the insurance requirements have been met. There's no budgetary impact for this event. You may approve, deny, or table this special event. Staff recommends that the city council approve the special event permit for the Spring Hill Fall Festival Cornhole Tournament. Any questions?
That's
Easy.
yeah, pretty straightforward. Obviously, this whole weekend is a fun event. So with the fall festival and the parade and everything else. So yeah, I think it's great. Any other questions, comments?
You ready?
Sounds like fun.
And with that, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the special event permit for the Spring Hill Fall Festival Cornhole Tournament.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0-1. correct? Would he be considered?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yes. All right. Next, we'll move on to item number 19, consider approval of a special event application for the Glow Run 5K Walk by the Spring Hill Recreation Commission. And Mrs. Garrity, you still have the floor.
Thank you. Same reason why Councilman Peel is not here is that this event is hosted by the Spring Hill Rec Commission. They placed the application in to have a 5K run walk on Saturday, October 14th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. This event does require a special event since it will be held on city property. The Johnson County Fire Number 1, City Council, or I'm sorry, Spring Hill Parks and Streets, Police Department, Community Development, and the city engineer reviewed the documents and have no issues to report. The event will begin and end at Life Spring Church parking lot located at 206 North Webster. No services are requested from the city. The Rec Commission will have their truck trailing the runners with a light and signs on the truck. And the run route was attached to the application. Staff requests City Council approve the city special event permit. The suggested motion is to approve special event permit for the Spring Hill Rec Commission's Glow Run 5K Run Walk to be held on Saturday, October 14th, 2023 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Any questions?
No.
Once again, that's another fun event for families and kids and anyone to get involved in. I know my family and I have participated in several 5Ks, and they're always a lot of fun. So, but yeah, with that, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve a special event permit for the Glow Run held by SHRC 5K Run Walk. Did I say it right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Second.
Got a motion in 2 seconds. Any other questions or comments? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0-1.
Thank you.
Maybe holler, Brian.
That ends formal action at this time. We'll move on to announcements and reports. The only announcement I really have is just, once again, this weekend's Fall Festival. It's the biggest event we have here in our community throughout the year. So just excited for that and would definitely invite and welcome everybody to come out to that. My family and my kids always have lots of fun at that, at the parade, at the street dance, everything throughout the weekend. There's just lots of fun events, lots of blow up toys and games and vendors. And I believe I was told that they have more vendors this year than they've ever had before. So that's awesome. So yeah, really excited for this weekend. Looks like the weather's going to hold out for us. We never know every year what kind of weather we're going to get for this event. So it looks like it's going to be pretty good weather. So come on out. With that, Mr. Van Houten.
Yeah, sure, I'll just echo that. And also Amy and been working on the Veterans Park for Veterans Day celebration. So that's coming along really well. It's going to be exciting. I think next month we'll have more stuff about that to get everybody excited about. But before then, we've got this weekend to party. So looking forward to seeing everybody out.
Mr. Peel.
See everyone at Fall Festival this weekend. I had a really good feel-good moment yesterday. So I wanted to share a very brief email that I got yesterday that I thought was just fantastic. It says, "Hi, Mr. Peel. I was just emailing you to tell you that me and some of my scout troop are planning to pick up the parade route on Friday from 4:30 to 5:30. So it looks nice for Saturday, and you can put this on social media to get the attention of others if they want to help out. Thanks." It's from Rory Solberg. Rory is a 7th grader at Spring Hill Middle School, and I just couldn't think of a better example of what community is and community service to see a 7th grader taking that kind of initiative on his own to even do that, but even beyond that, to email a city council member to tell him what he's doing. So I just thought that was a fantastic thing.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Very cool.
No report.
Mr. Young.
No report.
Mrs. North.
No report.
Mr. Massey.
No report.
Mr. Lowe.
No report.
Chief. There you go.
The room got empty.
Huh?
The room got empty.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. No, so yes, we will be leading the parade and also having a booth at Fall Festival. We have some giveaways, so people we got a couple bikes that we're going to give away. and some model cars that were donated to us. So hopefully some people will come by, give us their name and number, and we can pick the lucky ones out of a basket. The other thing is we have National Faith in Blue the following weekend, which is actually Saturday, October 7th, not Sunday, October 7th. So that was a mistake I made on the flyer. So I sent an updated one if it got out to the chamber's newsletters. But it is from 10 to 1 here at the Civic Center, and the officers will be cooking pancakes. So any and all community members are welcome to come. We'll have some games and stuff in the gym, and it'll just be a nice event on that Saturday, so hope to see some people there. We also have somebody is in the final steps of the process, so hopefully if everything works out, she will be joining us at the end of October. That'll take us up to 16, leaving us with two vacancies yet to fill. So other than that, I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Mrs. Long?
Yeah, more Fall Festival. The comp plan will have a pop-up booth there. So we hope everybody will come stop by and see us, as well as the City Hall booth where we will be doing pumpkin decorating and looking for donations for the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund.
Hopefully we got more pumpkins this time around.
We doubled them this year.
Sweet.
Yep. Number.
Madam Clerk? Mrs. Dunn?
I do have a quick one. As you guys know, Waste Management is preparing to switch out their trucks to have the side lift. And so starting on October 1st, actually Monday the 2nd, they will begin delivering the new carts and the new recycle carts to all houses that don't currently have waste management carts. So if you have a waste management cart, nothing's going to change for you. If you don't, they will be delivered to you. Anyone who's paying a fee for those charges will be stopped, and everyone will have carts without additional fees unless you want extra carts, and then that's different. Deliveries will be made Monday through Saturday for about 2 weeks, and they plan to be done early if possible. They are staging those at the Aquatic Center, so there's containers there, believe it or not. Then, as a reminder to everybody that the Thursday and Friday pickup schedule is changing a little bit. If you live north of 207th Street, your pickup day is Thursday. If you live south of 207th Street, you will get a pickup on Friday. And they've done a really good job of communicating. Postcards went out. We're getting calls about the change, and new things are coming.
Awesome. Thank you. Mrs. Jones?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Spear?
So, as Councilmember Van Houten mentioned, work is wrapping up on the Veterans Memorial Park. That is anticipated to be substantially complete within the next 2 weeks. So that's an exciting development. And the 2023 street improvements and maintenance projects are scheduled to be completed, weather permitting, by the end of October.
And just to highlight some of those areas, I know we've talked about them a lot, but it's Woodland Road, South Victory, South Harrison Street, 183rd is going on right now. So those are kind of the projects that those have to go. So there are some much needed areas will be hopefully resolved here within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So, or next month, I guess a little over a month. But, so yeah. With that, I entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Go for it.
Do you know how much time we need on the first one?
You guys are all looking at me.
I don't have it in front of me.
I don't want to do it.
10 for both.
10, all right. Sorry, it's probably on there. I just didn't have it in front of me.
So make a motion to recess into executive session under the attorney-client exception for 10 minutes.
Got a motion there. You want to say the time?
10,
12.
You gotta say what time it'll come out.
Just that we need 10,
10.
12.
And
10, 15, sometimes 10, 16,
Yeah, there you go.
17, 18.
Who's in attendance also?
you gotta say who's in attendance also.
Oh, start all over.
Redo.
Consider motion to recess into executive session of the attorney-client exception will come back at 10:20. that good enough, 10:19?
Way more than 10 minutes.
It's a revolving.
At
19.
10:15 on.
Are you
10:15
reading the motion that was in the e-packet?
I am.
Thank you.
Actually, this,
It's a form.
No, there's
It's-
actually a motion in
If
there.
you,
We don't have that.
somebody else want to do this? Sure. I'll
It's
pull it.
not.
I'll say I don't.
It usually is, but it's not.
Usually it is there, but it is not this evening.
That's probably why.
That's why I didn't want to do it.
That's why I was
I
scared
thought
of
it was
this,
you.
because I knew there was a lot more that I needed.
Yeah. I'm not gonna try and do it by heart.
I'm not either.
Oh, it is at the very bottom of the e-packet.
Oh, at the very end?
Yeah, so it's at the very, very end. It's,
Oh, there it
it's
is.
not where it normally is, but it is there.
Yeah, usually it's a handout.
Yeah, yeah, it's not actually.
Yep.
You scroll
there.
all the way down, it's there.
That is the one we're looking for.
I'll let you clean it up.
All right.
Wait, you gotta wait till she gets back.
None of them are gonna wanna make motions anymore.
I know.
That's why Diana does it every time. It's just like,
It's almost
bam!
like that's why you guys write these out for us.
We were supposed to let him.
Try to make it.
Amy can do it.
All right, do we need to,
Do we need to wait for her to come back?
Yeah, you just have to say who's going out into the executive session.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
so, you started it, so why don't you go ahead and say who needs to be in attendance?
So now.
Or just start over.
No, read.
Yeah, read the whole thing.
Or, yeah, just,
Say why.
okay, yeah, so,
I'm not there.
Yeah, we're coming back.
You're gonna have to change the time now.
10:18.
Actually, he probably won't need to change.
I think the time was right. to begin
Yeah,
with.
your time was actually probably right.
You guys are doing that.
We've moved on about 5 minutes.
he already
past.
saw this problem
Yeah.
coming. Yeah, and now it's not pulling up on your form either.
No,
I have it here. You want me to?
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I move the city council recess an executive session for 10 minutes to receive advice to council to discuss an existing economic development project pursuant to the attorney-client privilege exception of KSA 75-4319 B2 of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at 10:18. No formal actions anticipated following the session. Persons to be in attendance of the following: Lane Massey, Rhonda Dunn, Spencer Lowe, Tyler Ellsworth, City Administrator. Oh, sorry. Lane Massey, City Administrator, Rhonda Dunn, Finance Director, Spencer Lowe, City Attorney, Tyler Ellsworth, Bond Counsel.
Got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We found.
Motion carries 4-0-0.
Motion to give
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. Let the record reflect that the governing body reconvened into open meeting at 10:18 PM. No votes were taken or decisions made during the executive session. The discussion was limited to the subject stated. With that, I entertain a motion to move into executive session number 2.
You got it this time, or you want me to?
I can do this one this time. It says 15 minutes on here. We want 10?
10's good.
Okay. I move the city council recess into executive session for 10 minutes to receive advice of council to discuss a new economic development project pursuant to the attorney-client privilege exception of KSA 75-4319B2 of the Kansas Open Meeting Act. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at 10:30 PM. No formal action is anticipated following the session. Persons to be in attendance are the following: Lane Massey, City Administrator; Rhonda Dunn, Finance Director; Spencer Lowe, City Attorney; Tyler Ellsworth, Bond Counsel.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. See you.
10:30 already.
Yep. Welcome back, everybody. Let the record reflect that the governing body reconvened into open meeting at 10:30 PM. No votes were taken or decisions made during the executive session. The discussion was limited to the subject stated, and with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Have a good night, everyone.